the heck are you? Miller and Moulton on this second Thursday in July. It is the 9th day of the month. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming once again, millerandmoulton.com, and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Mark, top of the morning to you. How are you?
Doing great, David. Good morning. Thank God we're doing radio. I'm having a bad hair day. Just noticed when I looked up in the camera, and look at this. What a wreck. Might get a hat.
Not meant as a shot, okay? But you have thin hair, all right? Do you have good hair days?
Yeah.
Because like, you know, I mean, I've got a little bit of a salad, okay? I've got a little thickness to my hair, okay? Your hair, for the most part, your hair is thin, okay? I think we have about the same amount of hair, okay, in terms of, like, you know, how much forehead we show and all that. But I think that my salad has a little bit more lettuce to it.
But you have great hair. We've never, ever done anything but compliment that wonderful salad you have. I just looked up and went, geez, what a wreck. Usually it looks presentable.
Well, that's true. For whatever reason, the middle part of the salad here does look a little disheveled.
That's all.
That is true.
Had a rough morning. Coffee wasn't made, kind of running around, and didn't even look at the camera until we were on camera and went, wow, that's pathetic.
Some of the joys if you sign up once again for the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. You know, I didn't listen to a ton or watch a ton of sports radio or television yesterday. Even though there were games played in the MLS. All right. Bad job by me. But apparently one of the themes, because a few shows picked up on what we talked about yesterday morning, which was it was the 10th anniversary of LeBron taking his talents to South Beach. And I was listening to 10 minutes of Linda Cohn, who was filling in on Mad Dog Radio middays. And she said that they underachieved.
The Heat?
Yeah. She made the case the 4 years they were together, they underachieved. And I was like, huh. And she was not doing it to, you know, there was not a hot take. You know, that's not Linda's style. She just said, hey, don't know what to tell you. They won 2 out of 4. They probably should have gotten 4 for 4. And I started thinking about that. I'm wondering, is that right? Is that fair?
Well, that's the word I was going to use, because it does a little to discredit the teams that beat them, first and foremost. I mean, Dallas did a hell of a job in that series to beat Miami unexpectedly.
That was the one series the Heat were favored in that they lost. Most people forget the second year they beat, and talk about just a mistake that this franchise I don't think will ever live down. You know, Oklahoma City did have Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden all on the same team. And for $2 extra million a year, they traded James Harden. I think they were only willing to give him like $16 million a year, and he wanted 18. And so they traded him right after the three of them had taken Oklahoma City to the finals. And people forget Oklahoma City was favored in that series. They had home court advantage.
It's tough for me to say that if you didn't win every year, you underachieved. I think that's a hell of a accomplishment just to get to the final every year. I think it's silly to say a team should win every year, because then you're saying that you're kind of discrediting the other teams that won.
Oh, you're not kinda. I mean, you are.
And that to me, in a league with the best players in the world, is a shot. And I would disagree with her on that premise alone.
And then obviously they had the back-to-back series with the Spurs. I mean, remember, they were very fortunate to win the one title they did against San Antonio. I mean, Popovich screwed up at the end of that game. I mean, Chris Bosh is on the floor for Miami, and he doesn't have anybody with any size who can guard him And so Bosch able to grab the offensive rebound because there's nobody within 6 inches of him on the floor, kicks it out to Ray Allen, hits the three. They win in overtime. And if San Antonio could have grabbed that rebound, if Tim Duncan was on the floor, they would have won that title in 6.
So in the last 3 days, there have been 2 things on Twitter that have been out there. Describe your team's best win in as boring a way as possible, and the same with your team's best loss. And I happened to see the best win comment just haphazardly one day because Chris Bosh had responded with, I got a rebound and made a pass.
Yep. That pretty much sums it up.
So that just, the irony to me of you bringing that up, this San Antonio team was good. That Dallas team was good. That's just saying that the other 30 teams or the other 29 teams are junk. I don't like that premise. And we've had Linda on the show. I like Linda Cohn a lot. She doesn't do. You're right. It's not her style to come up with a hot take. That's just not who she is.
Right.
But I disagree wholeheartedly with her premise.
And I don't know how many Warriors fans we have in Southwest Florida, but if you're a Golden State Warriors fan, I mean, you made the finals 5 straight years. You won 3. I mean, do you think now one of the 2 you lost, you were up 3-1. There's no question about it. Did you let that series get away with games 5 and 7 at home up 3-1? Yeah, you did. But is a Warriors fan, and obviously they had a horrible year this year, and who knows if they'll get back to what they were here once they get everybody healthy and whatever moves they're going to make in the offseason and the lottery and all that. But, I mean, do you think a Warriors fan is going around thinking, man, I know we won 3, but we should have had 4 at least?
I think every once in a while they get angry at Draymond Green. He blew that series. It was his. He was the cause of them losing that series.
Well, he gave Cleveland an opening.
He did.
I mean, I could argue that Golden State still should have won, and they were the better team and all that. But there's no doubt about it. Cleveland was done. If Draymond hadn't gotten himself suspended for Game 5 of the finals, that Golden State would have been up 3-1 and would have had a full roster. No doubt. And I remember we were, that was our first act, and I remember turning to you and saying that Golden State better win Game 5. Because I said to you, whoever wins Game 5 is going to win the series. And you looked at me crazy, and I said, because I'm telling you, Cleveland's winning Game 6 at home. So if they win 5, we're all ready to Game 7. Boom. We just go straight to Game 7. And at which point, you're giving the best basketball player in the world 1 game for a title. And I'll take the team who has the best player on the floor. And I really thought going into that Game 5, Golden State better win tonight. Mark, you're a hockey guy, and there are times in which you think, boy, we better close out this series tonight because those guys over there, they get a little bit of life. Look out. We're going to find ourselves back here in a Game 7 in about 3 days.
I also think the other way is that I just look back at the one series with Idaho working for the Blades going, we've got no shot against this team. Right off the hop going, there are times that there's that, and then there are times that you look at it and go, we've got no shot to beat this team.
Yeah, they had more talent. I know Tom Buckley doesn't believe that, but they had more talent.
With more talent, and they were far superior coached. It wasn't even close. They had an NHL guy in their bench, and, well, the Everblades didn't.
Yeah, and the Blades were loaded up, but not like Idaho was loaded up.
Nope.
But that was for those that was the Blades' first run to the finals. All right, they faced Idaho. They lost in 5,
and it should have been in 3, and it was a best-of-7 series.
And then the next year, the Blades, and that's actually the one that got away. The Blades have had 2 that have gotten away. All right, but the
4 appearances, 1 and 3 in the final.
Yes. Yeah, they're 1 and 3 in the finals.
And really, you could argue should be 3 and 1.
Yeah, I mean, the one they were up 3-2 in the last time. lost Game 6 on the road and lost a Game 7 at home when they had a late 1-goal lead about mid-third period. But the one that, I was there in Trenton, and Blades are down 2-0. They win games 3 and 4 on the road, and they're up 2-0 going to the third period of Game 5. And if they win, they come home having won 3 in a row. And the cup's in the building, and they've got 2 shots at it.
Instead, they lose that game.
And they're on, and they start the third period on a power play. And this was the lockout year. And the Blades actually had a defenseman whose name now escapes me, whose name I think is on the cup. I think he was part of the Bruins team in 2011. All right. And he was the right defenseman on the point, on the power play. And late in the power play, the puck's coming to him, and it literally, Mark, just hops over his stick. And a forward for Trenton was coming at him full speed and just went right around him, picked the puck up, came in on a breakaway, and scored. And it was on. And next thing you know, Blades lost, and they come home and they lose Game 6. But I remember thinking they are 20 minutes away from winning the cup. So if Craig Brush is listening right now, sorry to bring back, those memories. But it is interesting if you were to sit Craig down and say, hey, you've been to the finals 4 times and you got 1. But write down on a piece of paper how many that deep down you think you should have had. And my guess is the number would be more than 1.
Oh, yes.
He would write down at least 2, maybe 3, but that the number would be different. And so I was thinking that when I heard Linda Cohn say that the Heat, she basically said they underachieved. 4 years together, 4 trips to the finals, they went 2-2. And by Vegas, they were supposed to go 2-2. Also, even though they had home court for 3 of the 4 series, by the time the Heat and the Spurs were meeting the second time, all right, most people felt San Antonio was playing great. And most people thought the Heat are the underdogs in this series, even though technically they had home court because they had 1 or 2 more regular season wins. But, I thought that was a little unfair. I have never thought of a team going to the finals 4 straight years, winning twice. Did the Bills underachieve?
No, they didn't underachieve. They were unlucky. I don't think it is, in the moment you want to say they underachieved, but just to make it to the Super Bowl, you've achieved quite a bit.
They were underdogs in 3 of the 4 games. People forget that. Yeah, they went 0-4. Well, the only one they were favored in was the first one in Tampa against the Giants. And they were about a 4-point dog against the Redskins, a 4-point dog against the Cowboys, and then like a 7-point dog against the Cowboys. They were supposed to go 1-3. They went 0-4. But, but Mark, it also goes back to, we've thrown this question out before. Would you rather be the Marlins or would you rather be the Braves?
Oh, and I think most people would rather be the Marlins.
Think about it. And what we're getting at is the Marlins have 2 titles and the Braves have 1. But the Braves, obviously, you go back to 1991, most of the last 30 years, the Atlanta Braves have been good, and they have contended. 20 of those 30 years, at the very least, they have contended. And they've got about 17 or 18 playoff appearances. The Marlins have been to the playoffs twice, have 2 rings. They've had like 5 winning seasons. Who would you rather be?
And from just a fan standpoint, you should say the Braves.
Right.
Because you get to watch good baseball. But I'll just do it with my team. I was lucky enough at 15 to watch the Tigers win a World Series in '84. They had a good run at the beginning of this century where they were pretty damn good for a while.
Yeah. About 8 years in a row there, 06 through 2013. They were knocking on the door every year.
As opposed to 84 through 87. They had a 3-year run there the first time, really.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And they won a World Series, and they lost a pennant to the Twins. And then it was pretty much done. I'll take the 84 through 87 run versus the 8-year run of disappointment. Give me the 1. Give me the 1 magical year. because that'll stay with me forever. 8 years of disappointment goes, that was fun. They were really good. That was cool when Kenny Rogers dumped the champagne on the cop, but they ended up losing the next series. So I can see both sides, David.
You know, it is interesting that some of the marquee franchises, that's why, I mean, you know, the Yankees haven't had a losing season since 1992. Now, they obviously had that great run in the 90s. But in the last 19 years, they've been to the World Series 3 times. They've won it once. But they've had a winning season every year. They're contenders every year. They've damn near made the playoffs every year for those 19 years. I mean, I think all but 3 they've made the playoffs. And so it's curious as to where we are, if you know what I mean. You know, what is your expectation as a fan? Is it, hey, at some point you got to win the final game of the year? I don't know what to tell you. You got to win the final game of the year. Or, hey, you take me. It's like the golf. You and I are into golf. You know, there are certain guys who they go on a run where they just contend in the majors. You know, they contend in the majors. But at some point, even the golfing world looks at them and goes, dude, you got to win one of these.
Ricky Fowler. I mean, that is one of the most popular guys on tour right now. He is the Peyton Manning of commercials in the golf world. I mean, there's not the Rocket Mortgage, the insurance company. I mean, he's on everything.
Right.
And he can't win to save his life.
No, I think he's won like 5 times total.
But for a while there, he was top 5 in every major.
Well, 2014, he had that season in which he was top 5 in every major.
And so he's expected to win one. And until he does, he's just a guy.
But he's not viewed that way.
No.
Right. But except by you and me. See, this is where you and I, we would have pulled our Linda Cohn. If we were on PGA Tour radio, we'd be like, hey,
he's underachieved.
He's underachieved. He's got to win a major. He's got to win some tournaments, actually.
Yes.
How about a year when Ricky Fowler has 2 wins? And how about this? Win 2 tournaments this year, and next year win your major, or 2 years down the road win the major.
Win a couple tournaments. Go win the Rocket Mortgage that pays you all that money to do cheesy ads.
It's why some people, to go on a tangent here, but you know how much I love Hall of Fame discussions. There are those that wonder, is Zach Johnson a Hall of Famer? Because I think he's got 12 PGA Tour wins, and he's got two majors. He's got a Masters and a British. And 12 PGA Tour wins. That's walking right up to the front door at the World Golf Hall of Fame. I mean, especially since you and I believe that their standards are not quite what they should be.
No, it's you know.
I mean, you and I would be a little tougher, okay, than the golf world.
What's Freddie have?
I think Freddie had 15 wins, 1 major. He was a Ryder Cup force, okay? And we're not even talking about President's Cup, but he was terrific in Ryder Cups. And I think Freddie had 15 tour wins, 1 major. He was number 1 in the world also. I mean, he officially was the number 1 player in the world for like 6 months in his career. Hey, Freddie, by the way, said it.
Yes, I know.
I don't know how many people saw. Freddie finally sat down and did a 2-part Faraday in which Faraday asked, I don't know if he asked him if he had any regrets, but Freddie just offered it up. And Freddie said, you know, I wish I won more. I should have won more.
If Freddie Couples was number 1 for 4 months, for 16 weeks, he was the number 1 player of the world in 1992. He won 15 times.
Yep. Late in 91,
if Freddie Couples is a Hall of Famer,
and
Zach Johnson is a Hall of Famer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I don't think most people look at Zach Johnson and think of him as a Hall of Famer. But it's just, and I don't know if that should be our poll question. All right. Looking back at LeBron's 4-year run with the Heat, 4 trips to the finals, 2 titles, did they underachieve? I think that's a little harsh. I do. I think that's harsh.
I was going to try to find a quick siren alarm sound, David, because no, that's not going to be our poll question.
Okay.
We are in
All right.
Southwest Florida, and there is a rule that we are not allowed to have back-to-back NBA poll questions, David.
You know, Mark, you make a dadgum good point. I forgot.
I don't know what to tell you, but David, there are rules around here.
Oh, I guess we'll just have to discuss it amongst ourselves and those of you that want to chime in on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. 479-5551, 479-5551.
And as Miller and Moulton fan on Twitch points out, the underachieval label, he believes, is slapped on the Heat because of that introductory press conference when they're claiming they're going to win 6 championships. So they put a lot of it on themselves.
No doubt.
They set the bar as high as you could set it.
And they, even though they didn't like it, they said they were going to be okay with it at the opening press conferences and training camp and all that. But then they realized they're wearing the black hats, and they weren't crazy about it.
Particularly LeBron. He'd never come close. He'd been loved by everyone. Everything he'd done had been a pretty good decision up until the decision.
And you and I didn't have a problem with the decision. In fact, it was your claim to fame as a sports talk show host. You said long in advance, heading into LeBron's free agency year, you said he's coming to Miami. I mean, you just looked at it. You knew all the cap space that they had, and you figured Wade was staying, and you just looked around, and you joked. You said, hell, everybody from Michigan and Ohio shows up in Florida.
Sooner or later, I-75 runs south, everybody.
But you were absolutely convinced of it. And then when the Heat were one of the Final Five making presentations, you were like, book it. I'm telling you, it's done. Miller and Moulton. Just one of those food for thought deals.
We'll break down yesterday's MLS action.
No, we will not. I don't even have the scores.
I do. Don't you worry. There was only one. There was only one game, David.
Well, it was the match.
Right.
I mean, we finally, the Florida Turnpike rivalry. The Turnpike rivalry.
We'll break down the Turnpike rivalry when we come back. It's the starting 5. We'll try to figure out a poll question. It will not be about the NBA.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. I'm glad you narrowed it down for me. I'm the problem one with these things, as you well know.
Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for listening. Where we stream the show at millerandmoulton.com, and please sign up and watch at twitch.tv Miller and Moulton.
We do this all for you. You are correct. So sit back and enjoy.
It's fun. It's the best.
Enjoy the banter.
Talk some sports. That's the game.
Enjoy the conversation.
Hopefully David and I can make it through this segment without passing out.
Enjoy all of this.
Love it. Embrace it. Isn't it great?
And let's not forget.
Because we're doing it all for you.
Bednar tomorrow, 8:30 live.
Do it often.
Wow.
Near Fox Sports Radio. Whether you
I like that. Nick Nurse and Jared Bednar on this show before the season starts. That's not all bad. I mean, they both could win.
You only got 61 of these guys.
But I mean, both of these guys could legit win.
He's still in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Is he in Colorado?
He's in Colorado. I texted with him yesterday, and he goes, I said, we taped something, and he's like, I'm up at 6:30. I'll do it live with you guys. No problem. What number do I call?
Wow.
Google ERM Roofing or call
Wow.
239-332-1441.
And you're right, Mark.
License number
In fact, it's a you and I poll question. All right. Which team has a better chance to get to the finals?
Ooh.
Knicks Raptors or Jared's Lance?
Ooh, because if you say win it, I'd clearly go Bednar. But if you say just the finals.
Just get to the finals.
Ooh.
Free on-site evaluation.
That's a good question, actually.
It really is. I don't know if 6 people care, but it's a great question. Hey, Twitch sports fuckers, where else you going to get this during a commercial?
Yeah.
This is quality stuff.
Yeah.
Or tell Collins here to book us on that page.
Yeah.
Never boring, that's for sure.
I was dismayed this morning to see that apparently there's another show on at this hour that's on Twitch. I guess the Fanatic. So, because I think we were the only one.
Yeah, there's quite a few more people going to this format, though, like stations.
Yes.
It's becoming more and more popular every day.
Having the freedom to enjoy a more flexible lifestyle, France Eye Care wants to offer you $1,000 off eyelash.
Boy, oh boy, yesterday. Are you thinking Shane Knighty, by the way? Is that the defenseman you're
There
thinking
you
of?
go. Shane Knighty.
I had to pull up the list. I wasn't exactly sure to throw it out. That's why I waited to the commercial. So yesterday, I'm a 15, but the group I played with a scratch, a 2, and a 4. They went 71, 74, 75. That's fun.
Well, you guys played fast.
No,
Really?
never with Greg Shires. He's a human rain delay.
Oh, God.
We were a hole behind the group in front of us.
Oh, my God. You
With a
would think.
45-minute rain delay, though, we still played in under 4 hours, including the rain delay. Teed off at 10:58, got in right before 3, and had a 45. Like we sat under a tree for 45 minutes. It poured.
Oh, it's not bad.
I love playing in my own cart. I absolutely love it. It is the greatest thing about golf right now. 4 carts. Put your music on.
Hardee's presents the new spicy Western bacon.
You know, you should.
Western bacon cheeseburger with
You just fly around out there. It's great. But I mean, I had watching guys shoot scores like that. We made as a group. We made like 11 birdies.
took a burger that was already delicious.
I even dunked one on a par 3.
Why are we using this whip crack to explain?
Nice.
Because jalapenos sound like this. Try the new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Hardee's. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
And I get to take money off of Z and Mitch. So I mean, that's. But you know,
charges of bringing a sweat to the brow with breakfast
you know my issue with him. But he sees me. He goes, "Did you get my text the other day?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
fluffy omelet full of
Just kept walking.
cheese, crispy bacon, and spicy jalapenos. And if you're feeling
How could
extra
Nashville,
wild,
Chicago
you
have
can
been
get it all
postponed?
wrapped up in a burrito. The Southwest
In the MLS?
Biscuit and burrito
Yeah.
are back.
COVID.
Only at Hardee's. Feed your
Is that why it got
Yeah.
postponed?
Time only at participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
Now back to Miller and Moulton. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
– 29 minutes past 6 o'clock on this Thursday morning, the 9th of July. Thanks so much for being with us. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and the Miller and Moulton Show streaming where you would expect to find it at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. You can always chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line 479-5551, 479-5551. Good show lined up for you. We got a couple of guests, one in the 7 o'clock hour, one in the 8 o'clock hour. Right now, time for
The starting 5. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and foxsportsfm.com.
Well, Mark, half of this announcement was expected. The Ivy League yesterday said, yeah, we're not going to play any fall sports. But there's a couple of other things that the Ivy League did and didn't do yesterday. First off, the Ivy League has not said whether or not they're going to play their fall sports at all next year. They just said, well, we're not playing them in the fall. They have not committed yet to playing them in the winter or spring. They're still undecided on that. And what should be noted is that what you would expect, the Ivy League schools lose the most money playing what sport? Football. I mean, the biggest drain on their athletic budgets is football. Whereas if you're a Power 5 school, that's your big money maker. In the Ivy League, that's your big money loser. Because, you know, your TV contract gets you about $37. So where are you making up these costs? And attendance isn't quite getting it done. So first off, check your favorite team's schedule as to whether or not if you had a game scheduled against an Ivy League team. In fact, there's a joke that now both Navy and Army lost out on games. Army was supposed to host Princeton, I think, in October. Navy had a game scheduled against an Ivy League school in September. And the joke was, could Army and Navy play twice this season? Obviously, they won't, but they each have games they have to make up. Also, the Ivy League announced, Mark, that the winter sports year will not begin before January 1st. And that affects FGCU. FGCU's men's basketball had a home game against Dartmouth. That's not going to happen. And the FGCU women had a home game against Princeton. Both these programs played Dartmouth and Princeton on the road last year. Both lost. They were looking forward to getting them at home this year. And those games are likely not going to take place because we don't think that any of the non-conference schedule will be made up, because once you get to January, you got to play your conference games. So the Ivy League affecting even FGCU, never mind they could be affecting your favorite program, whoever it may be. See the news out of Stanford?
Just quickly. No, I didn't, but just quickly on that. If you're FGCU, an ASUN school, a SoCon school, or whatever school, you're going to, and I know you shouldn't, okay? I get the answer before I ask the question. You going to hold any kind of a grudge here and not schedule these teams, period, going forward?
I don't think so. I don't think so for a couple of reasons. First off, scheduling is so hard nowadays, Mark. It's so damn hard. And these schools agreed to a home and home, and they'll likely both say, hey, we'll come next year. We'll come in November, December of 2021. I mean, obviously it's the coronavirus year. Don't know what to tell you. So,
I got you. That's why
I don't think so. But here's the difficulty. All right. And I don't know if people really care about this, but we talk about this a little bit on this show. We talk about scheduling from the big boy standpoint to the group of five standpoint to the FGCU standpoint. Mark, just to give you an example, all right, FGCU has lost 3 home games already this coronavirus year. They've had 3 home games go away. One was a conference game because a school left the conference. Now, on the men's side, Dartmouth. On the women's side, Princeton. They can't come to Alico Arena. And FGCU had another team that was scheduled who asked out. And so for next year, both the FGCU men and women now know, hey, we got 1 or 2 extra home games, which is good because it's tough for a school the size of FGCU to get people to agree to come play them at home. But now, Mark, at this late date, what do you do to make up these games? And I mean, let's be brutally honest. Do you want to schedule guarantee games? I mean, there are, believe it or not, the big boys, Mark, yesterday in college basketball were thrilled about this news from the Ivy League because they started looking up all the schools that lost games yesterday. And now they're calling them going, hey, I know you were thinking you were going to play Princeton, but you want to come here instead? Because they're looking for games. They're looking for wins. They're looking to buy wins. And so instead of you playing a game that, maybe you were going to win, maybe not, but you weren't going to make any money on, you want $75,000 to come here?
Fly take any of those calls yesterday? We know they need the money.
Well, that's just it. But then again, he lost 3 games. 2 of the 3, he thought he was going to win.
Going to win.
Right.
And he needs, he needs to win.
He needs to win. So now, okay, the games that are now available for Michael Fly and FGCU are buy games. Well, that's great. That'll put a couple $100,000 on the books. And yes, you need it, but that ain't going to help you because those are L's in all likelihood.
And I don't think W's and L's before January 1 matter to Coach Fly as much as you think they do. I think the only thing that matters to FGCU is conference play. That's what you're involved in the program. I'm on the outside. All I care about is how they do the first weekend in March. That's it.
But because of this, like, let's just say they go out in the second round of that, they play a full season's worth of games and they go out in the ASUN semis. And let's just say they go out with a record of 19-14. Well, that's with the schedule that they would have had. Now, in theory, they may have to replace 3 games, 2 of which were wins, with maybe 3 losses. So now all of a sudden, Mark, 19 and 14 becomes what? 16 and 17. Okay? Is he seeing year 4? See, that's where, depending on the school and the situation and what have you, this is where it could play a role. I mentioned Stanford. Stanford is, and this isn't even arguable. I mean, for as great as certain athletic departments are, Florida has a top 5 athletic department. The University of Michigan has a top 5 athletic department. Stanford is the best athletic department in the country. I mean, USC is a great athletic.
I was going to say UCLA and Stanford
Yes.
would be the 2 that I would lean on from an all-sports standpoint. No doubt, David.
Stanford plays 36 varsity sports. I mean, it's tough to find a lot of schools that play more than 24. Stanford plays 36 varsity sports. They're eliminating 11 of them after this year. Everybody who's planning to come on campus and this 2021 sports year will happen. But they have announced now, just to let you know, these 11 sports are going away. That's at Stanford. If you're wondering how the dominoes are going to fall throughout the other 129 major Division I athletic departments in the country, this, by the way, is with them still planning football's going to happen. What happens when the football revenue doesn't kick in? Oh, by the way, there's a movement afoot to get rid of Larry Scott as commissioner of the Pac-12.
Wonder why.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why it took so long. Ohio State and North Carolina have both paused their workouts because of the coronavirus. North Carolina releasing they've had 37 people test positive. Ohio State would not release how many have tested positive. NFL news, Raheem Mostert, the 49ers running back who emerged in the second half of the year. He ended up leading the team in rushing. Between the second half of the year and the playoffs, he had 12 touchdowns. He's got 2 years left on a deal, but when he signed that deal, he was basically a special teams player, and he was being paid accordingly. So he's got 2 years and about $5.5 million left on his deal. And he's like, yeah, I'm your leading rusher now. You got to, pay me a little bit more money. And the Niners apparently are unwilling to pay him some money. So he's requested a trade. And remember, they traded the other running back to the Dolphins during the draft. If they were to lose, Mostert there, it would be a big loss. Amazon has pulled Redskins merchandise following Nike from their online site. Now, Amazon can do that because they don't have a contract with the NFL. But as Pat Kerwin pointed out on Tuesday, we're all kind of curious how Nike, an official partner of the NFL, the swoosh will be on the uniforms beginning this year, how Nike can get away with it.
Well, and their exemplary standards of their employees throughout time. I mean, Nike is the leader in really human rights or shattering them, however you want to look at it.
The Steelers have announced if fans will be at their games this year that they will have to wear masks. And the Ravens announced that if they allow fans at their games this year, they will not allow more than 14,000 per game. And it's not like the Ravens have any trouble selling tickets. So
I think that's a risky statement, David. That we've already decided that in October, November, and December, we're capping it at 14,000. Now, I think if you wanted to say for September, we're going to do that and we're going to reassess, I think that would be smart. I think making big decisions about things that are 5 months away right now are foolish. Absolutely foolish. What the hell? I don't even really like what the Ivy League did, to be frank. But whatever. I don't care about Ivy League football. I think it's hysterical. People, well, they'll be in the spring, and people will really watch now. No, they might gamble on it more. That's what may happen.
Yes.
But I'm not. I'm watching a little more NASCAR. I'm not watching Korean League baseball. I'm not jonesing that bad to watch a bad product. And I just think it is a really poor decision to be making blanket decisions about the fourth quarter of 2020 or 2021 when you're in July of 2020.
All right, let me challenge you on it from this standpoint. That you've worked in the front office where you've had to sell tickets and you've had to deal with ticket distribution. This is only 9 weeks before your first home game. And do you think that they're doing this as an organization because they now have to figure out, okay, we've got, let's just pick a number, 40,000, 50,000 season ticket holders. All right. And now we're deciding and that's even if we allow one to come in the building. But if we're going to allow one, we're going to cap it at blank. Do you think that this is done more in-house to now reach out to their season ticket holders and figure out, okay, what games then are your games? Because let's just say they have 3 times as many season ticket holders as they're going to allow people in the stands. Don't they then have to divvy up who gets what games? And you would know, this is something you've had some experience with, even albeit at the minor league level, that I'm wondering if this is a decision from a customer service ticket standpoint more so than it is the bigger picture you were talking about. Because, I mean, Mark, you're a Buccaneer season ticket holder,
I've got
nothing.
Communication from them on a regular basis. They've done a really nice job of sending an email. Hey, we know you're there. Hey, we're on vacation this week, but they have not given any answers because they don't know.
Well, right. But at what point when you're in those organizations are you going to have to start making these decisions?
David, I get the point that you're making, and I think you could have done that for September. My only point is, why are you making a blanket decision about December in July? I think it's foolish. And to me, hitting send is all they have to do. Here's what we're doing, send. They did also announce they're going to defer season tickets to 2021. Correct. So it sounds like there's probably going to be some sort of lottery system with the tickets because they've told their season ticket holder that you just paid, and that's the other, they deferred it to 2021. Now, they'll give you your money back if you'd really demand it, but they're also taking everyone's money for 2020, and we're just simply going to defer it to 2021. You've already paid for next year's tickets, but I'm going to keep the money. I mean, that's so NFL.
Well, yeah, and they'll just put it in an account and they'll make the interest.
Correct.
The NHL has already announced that next year's season will start on December 1st. Now, this year's season is supposed to end at the very end of September or early October. Could trickle into the first couple days of October.
That's 2 months, though. I mean, They typically start the beginning of October.
Correct. So December 1st, and I think you and I are curious, okay, are they then going to back the season up and end it August 1st? Or are they going to shorten next year in which they don't play a full 82 games? Maybe they play 70-something?
Well, that's where I would be leaning if I were the NHL and the NBA. Are we going to be able to have full capacity? If not, I'm thinking about shortening the number of games I play. But I don't know. But David, to do that, you've got to break a CBA, and I don't know if you can.
Well, my guess is it's already been negotiated because remember they just negotiated a 4-year extension, and it seems as if the NHL and the NHLPA are very much on the same page these days. And it should be pointed out, Donald Fear is the guy who runs the NHLPA, the longtime guy who ran the MLBPA when they had, very cantankerous relationship with MLB. The PGA Tour is in Dublin, Ohio for the next 2 weeks. The Memorial is not this week. It is technically next week. They're playing some, charity. It's got some crazy name to it this week. But I mentioned that Dublin, because that's Jack's place and Jack's tournament. Mark, they hand out the Jack Nicklaus Award in college golf. The best golfer in D1, D2, D3, NAIA, and the junior college all are presented their level's Jack Nicklaus Award. Should be noted the Jack Nicklaus Award winner in junior college is a guy by the name of John Hopkins. He transferred to FGCU. He's going to play his last 2 years of college golf at FGCU, but he won it for this past year when he was at Mississippi Gulf Coast. In the
likes to keep the Gulf Coast type thing. That was big in his recruiting process.
Right.
Didn't want to change the monogram on the bag.
Exactly. All they did was take him down Ben Hill Griffin and take a picture of him standing against the sign. And
Right.
That was it. It was done. That was recruiting. And he drove past Miramar Lakes, looked like a nice track, and here's our sign. What do you say? Finally, Mark, the big story. The MLS is back.
It is. It is. And if you listen to this show, I told you, put your money on Orlando. Getting good odds on the Orlando Soccer Club, and they pulled it out 2-1 over Miami yesterday.
The Turnpike rivalry is born. Orlando beating Miami 2-1. And that, Mark, is
The starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
at 13 minutes before 7 o'clock. We'll come back with a poll question, recap yesterday's poll question. Thanks so much for being with us. Top of the morning to you, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
This is the Dan Patrick Show.
Talked a little bit about the McGuire-Sosa documentary.
Nani in extra time, David.
Well,
But right now, after the Jordan documentary, even
That's
the
big.
Armstrong documentary,
that is big.
flat because
9 shots taken, 3 shots on target.
forthcoming with anything other
For both teams? Or?
No, that's Orlando. 16 total shots, 4 on target for the whole game.
Oh, come on. You mean the goalies made 3 saves? Give me a break, guys.
From the
Come on.
looks of it, no. The goalies made 1 save. Because if the score was 2-1,
That's right, 2-1. I thought it was 1-0. Sorry, yeah. Oh, my God.
that's not a very good save percentage.
Oh, man. 4 shots on goal in the whole match.
Oh,
Was that on TV?
I hope not, but I'm guessing it was.
If anybody in the Twitch chat room knows, was that on a 4-letter network near you?
So, did you see the sports that Stanford's cutting?
Yes. Yes.
Men's volleyball, men's and women's fencing, field hockey. There's some other dandies here.
But for those that have been to Stanford, they said this: if you're on campus at Stanford, it has a different feel than most every other college campus. And part of it is because of how collegiate it is.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
how big sports are at Stanford.
240 athletes just lost teams
Right.
between all these sports.
Right. They were given and I think also they talked about, 57 employees or something like that?
22 dedicated coaches. But it's got a list here. Tennis has lost 15 programs this year already. 15 tennis programs are gone. 5 golf programs are gone.
John McEnroe won a national championship playing tennis at Stanford.
Now, they still have their tennis program at Stanford.
Yeah. Now, I will say, if you want to talk about an alumni base that could pony up to save these sports, it would be the Stanford alumni base.
But it says here, like, it's heartbreaking news. 11 programs, 240 athletes, 22 coaches. They were built by more than 4,000 alumni whose contributions led to 20 national championships, 27 Olympic medals, and an untold number of academic and professional achievements. But, 27 Olympic medals.
Correct. 20 national championships. And we've talked about it. The Pac-12 bills themselves as the conference of champions.
Because they are.
Because they win more national championships. It's just not in football.
Right.
Or basketball. Poll question?
Yeah, we need one of those.
How about this? If your favorite team tells you you can come to the game, but you have to wear a mask, will you? Because like the Steelers announced yesterday, if we have fans, you're just letting you guys know now, you're going to have to wear masks. And see, because to me, this is the dichotomy. People will, I believe, those that won't wear it at Costco will wear it at the Swamp. They'll be okay with wearing it, cheering at a football or basketball game.
I know. I know. It's just something.
Otherwise, I don't know what to do.
There's a great thing on the PGA Tour put up an old. Do you remember seeing this Phil Mickelson hit the guy in the head with the drive?
Yeah.
And he walks up to him and goes, "If your head was softer, I'd have been in the fairway."
Right.
God, that's funny.
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. We're still finding a lot of roofs with hurricane and windstorm damage. Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is DR Martineau.
Now back to
All right, turn it back up.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
As we approach 7 minutes before 7 o'clock, top of the morning to you. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing talk and text line. It's 479-5551. That's the number you need to know, 479-5551. Were you surprised by our poll results yesterday?
Not really. Not really. In fact, not at all. I think that by and large, particularly in this market, we don't like the NBA. So anytime a question of likability of the NBA comes up and in thinking that the players having control is something that works, if anything, I'm surprised that it was as close as it was.
The poll question was 10 years ago, King James made the decision, taking his talents to South Beach, and at that moment, the players took the power in free agency. Is the league better off because of it? 56% of you said no. 44% of you said yes. And I contend that the NBA was better with LeBron leaving for 4 years and going to Miami and creating that super team in the East. All right. I thought that made the NBA better, but on a whole, no. And to me, when Durant joined Golden State, that's when I think a lot of us went, oh, come on. Seriously? That's how you're going to get your rings? You're going to join the best team in the league? Really? Come on, dude.
And I know it's basketball. We don't really we celebrate it when the Yankees did it for generations, but in basketball, it's bad. And I know one player means so much more in basketball.
Yes.
But it is interesting. And I know you're not a Yankee fan, and I'm not saying you, David, but
I'm not a Yankee hater either at all.
No.
In fact, I kind of like the Yankees. I always have. Grew up watching them. They were fun. They were good.
I say the same thing. I was lucky enough to see them play in the World Series against the Marlins, and I went to a game in '84, and I was with my buddy, and he looked at me and he goes, "Something cool about this. It's the Yankees, man." And we're lifelong sports fans. We had been to a World Series game, but going to a World Series game when one of the teams wearing the pinstripes, it just meant a little more.
Yeah. It really, it's so funny you say that because obviously I grew up within an hour of Yankee Stadium. But the first time I covered the Yankees, I was on the field for opening day of the '86 season, Lou Pinella's first day as manager. And Mark, it struck me when they emerged from the dugout, when Don Mattingly and Dave Winfield walked out of the dugout and they're standing next to you in their pinstripes. You're like, damn, those pinstripes do look really good.
And, been to Yankees games at Old Tiger Stadium, and there's just something about that uniform. There's a mystique about that. And yet, an NBA player goes to the best team. Well, you sell out SOB.
Well, because also, like, if you're a free agent or whatever and you go sign with the Yankees because you're hoping to win a ring, that's it. You're hoping. Okay, in the NBA, when you're joining the best team in the league and you're one of the 5 best players in the league, you're all but ensuring, unless injuries take effect, that you guys are going to win. It's like, so that's how you're going to get your ring, really, on the backs of others? Come on, dude. Like, if Golden State had never won and Durant went there to take him over the
1
top,
minute.
I think people would have been fine with it. We need to come up with a poll.
We celebrated Paul Coffey going to the best team in hockey to win his ring. And I know you're right. I'm not trying to argue you off your point, but you're exactly right. And the more I think about all of these players that have tried it and done it, we didn't have a problem with it. But boy, we did not like Kevin Durant going to Golden State.
No,
and you're right, David. You're absolutely right.
Miller and Moulton. We'll come up with a poll question. We're on the verge of having one. All right. We got close during the break. All right. We just need a couple more minutes here to discuss it, and we'll have the poll question coming up in a matter of moments. Promise.
Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for listening, however you may be doing it. MillerandMoulton.com, or you can check us out during the break on Twitch.tv.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood, and the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy.
Oh, I didn't realize the
and
MLS had an
most
8-minute and
can't believe
46-second
how much
moment
their
of
mood
silence.
improves once they get treated, and everything improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference C4MH.com can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home, and that'll put you in a good mood too. C4MH.com's express treatment.
Well, we just got called MSNBC
and
Sports
above all,
Talk Radio.
and with
The
locations
NFL
all
comes
over
out with a
Southwest
statement that
Florida,
doesn't
there's
say
one thing
anything
to do
about
right
the
now.
horrible tweet,
Find
and you
out
take
more.
the first
Go to
hour
C4MH.com.
talking 10-year-old NBA. Way to go.
Work for you.
You know how it works.
Covered Deshaun Jackson extensively
For
yesterday.
you.
It's not often
Did
that
2
you
segments on
work
it.
with somebody
And
who's
had a guy on
bad.
from Philly. I mean,
We give you the information you need.
Every single day there's a news story.
We got a story.
We've been working on that all morning long.
is that a text or in the Twitch chat room?
Text.
We do this all for you.
Well, we can answer that
Business works.
We are Fox Sports Radio.
because it's worth talking about.
Hard for you.
Looking for a frameless shower door? My Shower Door has just opened their 8th Florida showroom, and it's conveniently located in Cape Coral. With more than 75,000 frameless shower doors installed, no one has more experience and 5-star reviews than My Shower Door. We've been named #1 by readers of the News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years and have just been named as Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdor.com.
I was going to say,
WFSX
and he obviously
from
is up
Naples to
listening in the
Cape
6
Coral,
o'clock hour
all
because
of Southwest
we
Florida.
it was our
94.1
dominant
Fox
topic
Sports
of the.
Radio.
I mean, we
Here's
talked
what's
about it at
trending
length
now.
in the 6
Brought to you
o'clock
by the
hour
Center for
yesterday.
Men's Health,
Look,
C4MH.com.
I'm so over people right now. And I am. MSNBC Sports Talk Radio? F you. Really? We don't talk, we're liberal now? Now we're liberal? Come on. It's fucking sports.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller
You know what? I'll try to bring you back some fish.
and Moulton.
Okay, you drop it off at the front door.
Probably in the mailbox. We'll pack ice.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
It's up to you now. It's up to you. I like it.
Now, The best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
As we approach a couple minutes past 7 o'clock, Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, 9th of July. Thanks for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com and millerandmoulton.com, and broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can chime into the show, as some already have, on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551. That's 479-5551. At the bottom of the hour, we'll talk with Brandon Marcello. He covers college football nationally, and not just about what took place yesterday, but what it may mean, if anything, for the sport going forward. And next hour, we'll talk a little hockey, quite frankly, because the hockey players are going to start showing up next week.
Back-to-back. We're going to have hockey on back-to-back days on this show.
I know. We've got a great guest lined up for tomorrow.
Colorado Avalanche head coach Jared Bednar will join us at 8:30 tomorrow on the show.
So look at that. Last week an NBA head coach, this week an NHL head coach.
And David and I have our own little poll question on this. Which of these
Right.
teams has a better shot to get to the finals?
Right.
Because if you said win it would be Colorado. I think Toronto has a much tougher shot to win the whole thing. But just to get to the final?
Right. Raptors, basically, the thought is they got to get past Milwaukee. You could argue Colorado has a tougher road to the finals.
Right.
Okay, but has a better chance once they get to the finals, because the thought is the Raptors will face either the Lakers or the Clippers.
Such a great little bet. I mean, in the old days, this would be a lunch bet right here.
No doubt.
And since we don't dine with one another anymore or really see each other socially ever anymore, that's out. I guess we could send a pizza to someone if you could eat that.
We could, or a gift card, or we could just agree, hey, this is our 2021 COVID bet.
Right.
Okay, whoever wins the next time we're together buys.
You could send me a pizza. I could send you an edible arrangement.
I hate you for that, but that's a great line. 479-5551, 479-5551. We were taken to task on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line.
We were called liberals, David. We were called MSNBC Sports Talk Radio in all capital letters.
What?
The NFL comes out with a statement that doesn't say anything about the horrible tweet, and you take the first hour talking 10-year-old NBA? Way to go, MSNBC Sports Talk Radio. Apparently, we're liberals. Now, I have now been dubbed an MSNBC liberal.
Well, I'm sure that's going to be a shock to your wife.
Thank God last night was Make It Happen night, because it'll never be again once this news gets out.
Right. Honey, I don't know what to tell you. Read this text. We talked a lot of Deshaun Jackson yesterday.
Most of the first hour, and then we had Rob Ellis on in the 8 o'clock hour.
And then we had Pat on the day before. All right. I will say this, and this is undeniable. Where is the outrage about Deshaun Jackson's comments, though? I mean, that is, hey, now, come on. Discrimination's discrimination.
Correct.
Racism, prejudice is prejudice.
And the problem, David, is there's not a lot of Jewish football players.
Well, so what?
I mean, I'm surprised the owners haven't come out more critical. Well, look at David, when Drew Brees says the flag thing and doesn't want people to kneel, well, when 80% or 70% of the league's black, they're going to come at him. The few Jewish players in the league have made statements.
Yeah, but I mean, Mark, I don't think you have to be Jewish to be offended by what Deshaun Jackson said. I mean, I'm appalled by what he said.
I'm appalled by what he said, too.
I'm an Irish Catholic.
But,
I mean, to me, this is a human race decency thing. I mean, it shouldn't matter if you're black or white or a Jew or not a Jew. I mean, he's prejudiced. He doesn't like Jewish people. He can say afterwards whatever the hell he wants. Okay? You can't say what he said and then try to say afterwards, well, I don't have anything in my heart against Jewish people. Yeah, okay. Right. You tell yourself that.
Right.
I mean, come on. I mean, the only question is whether or not he should be fired or not. And we talked about it in great depth yesterday. The Eagles have a problem unlike most any other team in the league, because they had a player 7 years ago caught on video throwing the N-word around, all right, like the Riley Cooper. And they kept him. And they kept him in large part because Michael Vick went to bat for him. And they kept him. And they actually signed him to an extension after the year that they kept him, in which he played pretty well, and they did pretty well. So, you know, the bigger picture, I mean, you know, should you lose your job? The irony is that if you work just like the gentleman who was caught on videotape accosting a couple of people in a local store, and when that video went out, he lost his job. I mean, if Deshaun Jackson was an accountant, all right, would Deshaun Jackson have lost his job at his firm yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a very good chance.
Deshaun Jackson would have lost his job if there was no Riley Cooper.
Correct.
Period. End of sentence. That's what saved him.
Yes. And if you're the Eagles, you really need to do one of two things. You need to come out and go, well, we screwed up 7 years ago. We should have gotten rid of Riley Cooper. But because we didn't, we'd be hypocrites if now we get rid of Deshaun Jackson. Or they'd have to do the, hey, two wrongs don't make a right. So I know we were wrong 7 years ago, but we're not going to be wrong this time. Now they'd catch holy heck because they kept the white guy and fired the black guy. But, you know, okay, hey, you decide what bed you want to sleep in here. But I do think that what the Eagles, if I were in the room, Mark, and I'd be saying PR-wise, the way we need to handle this going forward, we need to come out and say we find this reprehensible. To be brutally honest, we want to fire him. But since we didn't fire Riley Cooper, we think it'd be unbelievably hypocritical to fire Deshaun Jackson. All right? So for that reason only, we're keeping him. But we're stating on the record right now, from this point forward, you speak the way Riley Cooper spoke in 2013. You speak the way Deshaun Jackson spoke a couple days ago. You will not be members of the Eagles franchise going forward from this date on. That's what I think they should do. Okay? I am surprised, though, that the NFL statement was as weak as it was. Very surprised, actually. And I do think, give it some time. Okay, there was it a Pittsburgh Steeler who spoke out pretty emotionally yesterday, in which, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo what he said. I don't want to mischaracterize it, but he was trying to, I mean, he was channeling Rodney King, quite frankly, from a day gone by, in which he was basically saying, why can't we get along? What is our problem? Why can't we love one another? Why can't we respect one another?
Yeah, Zach Banner was the player. He says, the beautiful city of Pittsburgh, and we need to understand Jewish people deal with the same amount of hate and similar hardships and hard times. I'm not trying to get emotional right now, but I want to preach to the black and brown community that we need to uplift them and put our arms around them. Just as much when we talk about Black Lives Matter and elevating ourselves, we can't do that while stepping on the back of other people to elevate ourselves. That is very, very important to me, and it should be important to everyone. We can't preach equality, but in result, flip the script and change the hierarchy, if that makes sense. Change your heart, put your arm around people, and let's all uplift each other.
Well, and in the greater Pittsburgh area, wasn't there a mass shooting at a synagogue within the last 3 years?
And one other player, Mitchell Schwartz, from the Chiefs, also posted, his comments and talks about the locker room being the great equalizer, but he also points out in there that the number of anti-Semitic things that are going on in this country is on the rise, and with everything going on, that there needs to be attention brought to that as well.
Right, hate is hate.
Right.
All right, and we need to not just say, "Oh, well, this hate's worse than this hate."
And David, I know. Look at part of the reason is, and I just looked up some numbers. We have about 2% of our population that's Jewish in this country. The same thing goes on with Asian Americans right now. I mean, you saw the video in California, and I don't want to mix sports and politics, but we don't pay nearly the attention to the guy in California that went off on a table full of Asian Americans that we do of the videos that we're seeing of people being vile towards black people.
True.
It just, I think these are facts. I'm not trying to paint a picture where one doesn't matter as much as the other. But when there are fewer of a population, the hate will go more unnoticed. It's, with all of this going on, then all of the sudden the Redskins name comes up. That wasn't the first thing, but after people keep digging, they went, by the way.
And I would say to the gentleman who texted us and lambasted us for what we didn't say in the first hour, these last 10 minutes, sir, may be the reason why we haven't talked about this as much as a lot of other shows have. One of the things that we are as adamant as we can be, and it's very difficult during these times, is we try desperately to keep this a sports show. All right. And look how quickly our sports discussion became a societal discussion. And with as polarized as we are right now, if you get out of one lane and go to another, people politicize it. And I mean, we don't, but quite frankly, our country right now is so divided and so politicized that our country will take a discussion that leaves one lane and goes to the other, and they will take it and mushroom it. And so we just ventured out of our lane in the last 10 minutes. And it might be why we haven't discussed certain things maybe as much as other people would want us to. Like, we talked about Deshaun Jackson yesterday from a sports standpoint, from the Philadelphia Eagles got problems, and they're of mostly their doing. How would you handle it if you were them? We didn't discuss it about, how much a 33-year-old wide receiver has left, and this is likely the final year he's going to play with the team anyway. But so that's another reason why, I thought we would get criticized more for the 10 minutes we just did. That was taking a sports thing, and we kind of ventured and started venturing into 2 and 3 lanes and making it societal.
But I don't know how else to go with that discussion.
Right.
What else do you do?
Right. If you want us to discuss.
We're comfortable discussing it, but we try to stay. Trust me, we did a great hour on Tuesday. I mean, a great hour, 9 to 10, that would have been fantastic on 92.5. Yeah. But we only do that on the phone with one another. Yeah, we don't even do it in commercial breaks anymore.
No, we've offered to fill in on 92.5 when either one of the two local hosts are off. They won't take us up on the offer. I mean, we'd love to do it. It'd be a great show. We'd never work again.
In this market, ever.
No, it'd be phenomenal, though. It'd be great. I mean, hopefully it'd be good enough for us to get a job somewhere else. But
Louisville, hello.
Hello. Just Elgin, Illinois, hello. So, I mean, but yes, there's, and I would venture to the gentleman who texted us, hey, you politicize this first. Okay, you were the one who, labeled us and painted us with certain brushes. I mean, at least look in the mirror yourself here. You may be right, but you were the one that ventured down that lane first, by the way. So
479-5551. I think it's time to give that number again for the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing Talk and Text line. 479-5551 if you're not in our Twitch room where the chatting never seems to end.
But listen, I would hope people would know by now that we're into the truth. We're into the truth and trying to be as hypocritical as few times as possible in our lives. I mean, Miller and Moulton are flawed, not just as a show, but as men. Okay, but we're into the truth. We are willing to take our chances laying it all out there. Okay, as a show, we tell you about us and our lives and our views on sports. And I mean, it's tough to honk people off more than if you say something bad against their favorite sports team. I mean, it really is. But we're okay with that. I mean, it's just who we are. But also, we try to be as hypocritical as few times as possible. And when we know we are being hypocritical, okay, we usually admit it. we're like, listen, this is kind of hypocritical for me to say, but
I'm going to say it anyhow.
Right. And the other goes, well, it's more than kind of hypocritical. Okay, fair enough. So I wish that the outrage had been more, quite frankly. I mean, I'm very surprised Showtime has not gotten rid of Steven Jackson yet. And for as eloquent as Steven Jackson was 2 weeks ago, talking about the struggles of being black in this country, and I mean, he was eloquent. It was a beautiful 3-minute speech that he gave a couple of weeks ago. That's how awful what he had to say was in the last 48 hours. And I'm surprised, quite frankly, he's still associated with Showtime. I am. And I think that there's a few people. I think the Eagles, I think the NFL, I think Showtime, I think they all need to look in the mirror and go, well, would we have handled this differently if it was someone else about something else? I mean, hypocrisy is hypocrisy. You know, if we want to go really big picture here, for as politicized as people are, hey, you know, it's not just your side behaving well and the other side's behaving badly. I mean, come on now. I think we all admit, you know, whether it's PPP money. Okay. I mean, you really think only one side is getting money? No, other side's gotten money too. You know, the whole stock tips trading. Remember when the coronavirus was just breaking out and there were like six politicians who did some because they got
dumped everything and they knew it.
Yeah, dumped everything and knew it. Okay, well, you know, we politicians on both sides of the aisle here. It wasn't just one side or the other. You know, I mean, I think by now you should know we're into calling everybody out. Everybody.
And Steven Jackson, what David mentioned, one, he backed Deshaun Jackson off the get. And then yesterday went on Instagram Live and doubled down.
Yeah.
And doubled down. And was pretty anti-Semitic again.
Yeah. I mean, Deshaun Jackson at least has backpedaled. Now, it was a slow backpedal at first. And now he's like Dion. All right. That's how fast he's backpedaling. But, you know, the Eagles and the NFL are going to decide to do what they do. Now, usually if it doesn't happen within the first 48 hours, it doesn't happen. I mean, it just doesn't. Unless outrage grows and the Eagles take the pulse of their community and they're like, yeah, we can't handle this heat. But remember, this is a franchise that, they signed Michael Vick when no one would touch him. I mean, do you remember how hot that was? I know that's almost a decade ago, but that was hot.
Put it this way, you put a picture of Michael Vick up on social media and watch the outrage from people that's still there.
Right.
There are plenty of people in this world who hate the Eagles for giving him a second chance. David said it at the time. Old people and dogs, man, you don't mess with either.
No. Throw kids in there. There's your trifecta.
Yeah. Kids, old people, and dogs. Don't mess with people.
Way.
Those are innocent, harmless groups. And when you do something against them, people come out hard. Right. And I don't know if we have ever come out as hard. Hell, I think we came out as harshly, if not worse, on Vic than we did the Juice.
And so then...
And he killed two people.
And then just a couple of years later, you got Riley Cooper at the concert throwing around the N-word on video, and the Eagles kept him, and they took that heat. All right? And remember, that's not just heat coming from the community. That was probably a decent amount of heat coming from the locker room, too. You think of some of the personalities who have played for the Eagles here in the last decade. And their best players are some strong, opinionated black men. All right. And they kept Riley Cooper on the team. And so that's another reason why if the Eagles got rid of Deshaun Jackson, okay, you'd be like, there'd be a part of you that would go, hold on a second. Hold on. You handled the heat from Vic and Riley Cooper, but this is the one you can't handle? Really? Now, I do think, Mark, they need to come out effective immediately and go, listen, we're done being the land of the rehabilitation. We're done being the land of second chances. Okay? In the last 10 years between Vic, Riley Cooper, and now this, you know what? Sorry. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm tired of people having reasons to hate this organization. I'm not going to be that organization anymore. For as much as I want to be nice and have a big heart and give people second chances, I can't do it anymore. This will be the last time. Everybody who works for the Eagles from this point forward needs to know. We're going to act like every other organization. You do something like this, you're getting fired. Period. Don't even ask. No need to come in. We'll ship you your stuff. I do think they need to do that. I don't expect them to do it. And Deshaun Jackson and the Eagles are very lucky that we're going to have a COVID training camp because there's not going to be anybody around really to talk to him. Nobody's going to get near him.
No, but when the GM's Jewish and the owner's Jewish, he's got a lot of interesting conversations that lie ahead.
No doubt. But if he hasn't been fired by now,
nope.
My money's on he's there opening day. Now, it'll be a hell of a reaction coming out of the tunnel. I'm not so sure I'd start him because I don't know if I want to bring that down. Either that or maybe he really needs to hear it. Could argue that. You know what? Maybe I will start him because he needs to hear it. Whatever it is.
We will talk more football coming up, or lack thereof, in the Ivy League. The fall sports schedule has been, postponed.
Is it postponed or canceled?
That's the question that we do not know.
Right. Brandon Marcello covers college football nationally for 24/7 Sports. He will join us next, and we will get to that poll question. I mean, now we've got another one we can ask. Should Deshaun Jackson be fired?
I think that's a better question than your mask question from earlier.
Fine. All right. Should Deshaun Jackson be fired, cut, however you want to phrase it, by the Eagles? Yes or no?
Miller and Moulton. There it is. We've got ourselves a poll question. And Brandon Marcello coming up next. Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening. Fox Sports Radio.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
So Fox Bet came out with something. It's called spread value of coaches. How many points is your coach worth? And the names at the top are not surprising. Bill Belichick is worth a field goal. What? Number 8 is...
So this is interesting. The Devils are apparently hiring Lindy Ruff to be their head coach. Lindy Ruff is currently an assistant with the Rangers. If you're the Rangers, do you keep him around? For, do you just keep him around here? You're about to start up your season in 3 weeks. You're hoping you're going on some sort of playoff run here. Is this one of those like in college sports, Mark, especially college football, where they hire so-and-so, the assistant or the head coach, but he's going to stay with the team through the bowl game?
You also have other products as well.
We also carry the Cortex Stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortex, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortex.
Should Deshaun Jackson be fired, cut by the Eagles for his anti-Semitic comments?
Southwest Florida's
Just make sure you spell everything right.
D-E, capital S-E-A-N. And since I was typing Semitic right off of the list where I saw it, I know I've got that one right, David.
Good deal.
Trust me.
Good deal. Well, there are a couple of ones there. You know, it's not often you get a name with 2 capital letters.
Right? No. I trust me. I got everything out right now. And you know it's my biggest fear in the world, too.
For over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
Want to talk about Stadium Dry Cleaners? My good friends, they are great people there. I've been going to Stadium Dry Cleaners, I'm telling you, for as long as I can remember. And you may know Larry Rose. Larry is an experienced SEC.
That's all. I just telling you, I just want to play the Stern spot over this every time.
I do too.
our first responders and seniors. Multiple
Isn't it their grand opening?
Publix at Daniels Crossing in Fort Myers, the Gateway Trade Center in
Just
Fort
so
Myers,
good.
and the Elegant Image Dry Cleaners next to Walgreens on Del Prado in Cape Coral.
I thought the Stern movie was terrific, by the way. I think the Stern movies like Days of Thunder, people, kind of poo-pooed it, and I thought that the education that Stern gave people about the radio industry in that movie, okay, and I know that's not why you were watching the movie, but he gave you a great education as to this business. And to me, I thought Days of Thunder did the same thing.
Oh, definitely. Definitely on Days of Thunder. Well, I think the Stern movie's fantastic because it's hysterical.
Companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and out.
I don't know which scene I like more.
Starts as low as $99. Call 239-944.
But the woman in the living room with the speakers has to be the best scene.
Oh, God.
TowboatUSCapeCoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water.
It's Kaylee Kobe with your Kobe Cooling Tip of the Day. It's summertime, so it's hot. Make sure you change your AC filters every month.
Hello? Brandon.
Yeah.
Good morning. Mark Miller, David Moulton, Southwest Florida. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for the time. We're going on in about 30 seconds here. David goes first. I go second. And again, thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem.
And call 239-482-1542. And relax. We will take it from there. 24/7, same low prices, never an overtime charge. When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you'll think of Kobe Cooling. No nonsense, no pressure. We're the company your neighbors use. License CACO 57313. Kobe, most trusted name in the business since 1949.
Thank you for your business all these years.
Now back to Miller and Moulton. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Welcome back at 28 minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Mike Kelly from NHL Network will join us next hour. It's a pleasure to welcome Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports. He covers college football. You can follow Brandon on Twitter, the letter B, Marcello, Marcello. Brandon, good morning. Thanks for your time. Hope you and your family are doing well during all this. How are you?
I'm good. Good, doing as well as we can.
Yes, we are. Groundhog Day now for about day 110 or whatever it's been. So, all right, your thoughts. Does what the Ivy League did yesterday, in your estimation from the people you talked to, will it have any bearing or impact on what the big boys do here either later this month or next month?
No, I don't believe so. And I know a lot of people have tried to make comparisons to what happened in mid-March when the Ivy League made a decision to cancel their basketball tournament, and then the big boys did so, a day or two later. This is a much different situation with football. One, different levels, obviously, with the FCS and the FBS. Two, financial situations. Money's everything, obviously, in college football, and we know that, right or wrong. And listen, the Ivy League schools have a lot of money and endowments, so they've got a little bit more of a softer cushion than, say, even the big boys, because, as we know, they make a lot of money, of course, in the SEC and the ACC, but they also spend a lot of money. They spend that money. They don't necessarily save it. So that's the primary issue here that is going to pop up as they make this decision on the Power 5 level. Now, that's not to say every conference is going to make the same decision or whatever, but that's why most of them are waiting until late July, early August, kind of the 11th hour to decide, hey, are we starting the season on time or are we not? And in fact, I think most Power 5 conferences, from talking to people and administrators, they're going to wait to the 11th hour and just keep delaying if they have to until they can't delay anymore. And I guess my whole mantra for it, from based off what I'm hearing, is it's just going to be delay, delay, delay until you can't play. That's what they're going to do this year.
And it certainly seems that, Jim Harbaugh's comments yesterday, well, I don't think it's going to get any worse. There's a lot of experts. But the other side of this, too, that we've talked about today, this, with the Ivy League's decision, it affects a lot of other schools. And not just with the fall sports, but not starting winter until J1, this will affect basketball and college hockey schedules. This little move by the Ivy League affects all of college sports.
Yeah, on the football level, there's really only one game that you really think of that would affect like an FBS team, but other than that, the issue is going to be basketball. I think Alabama plays Yale or something like that. Obviously, those schools play more of the big boys in basketball than they really do in football in the non-conference season, and that's not talked a lot about. Even on the big level, there is what's going to happen with college basketball. It isn't like college basketball is like an afterthought where it happens, everything happens in February, March. Practices really get underway in October, and then the 1st of November, the season starts. And that's not too far away, especially considering that we're, talking about early September for the start of the football season, whether that's going to be on time or not. And there's a lot of concern about basketball, and as you see, the Ivy League's like, hey, we're delaying everything to at least January 1st. We'll reevaluate when we get to that point. But I think that obviously basketball, and what the Ivy League's decision did, is going to affect scheduling more so for the big boys than anything. As it stands now, obviously things can change on the FBS level of whether they decide to delay things as late as January as well.
He's Brandon Marcello. He covers college football for 24/7 Sports. You can follow Brandon on Twitter, the letter B, Marcello, Marcello. You said earlier, delay, delay, delay until they can't play. Is that the feeling from the people you talk to, or is it delay, 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 and then we'll make our announcement as to when we will play? Because, Brandon, we're of the belief, and we stated this 3 months ago, right or wrong, there's too much money at stake. Athletic departments will go bankrupt if they miss one big-time college football season. Never mind what it could do to the university model if they go a year without kids on campus, and that at some point it's all about the money, and a decision's going to be made at least to start and see week to week how we're doing. Is that the feeling you get from the people inside the sport that, hey, we've got to play? It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, that's kind of what the feeling is, and based off who I've talked to. But the optimism of starting on time is really decreased here in the last 2 weeks, especially this week when everybody came back from July 4th holiday. A lot of people just don't know and don't believe that they're going to be able to start, on September 5th for most schools, or in week 0, that last weekend in August. Now, that starts bringing up all kinds of contingency plans and discussions about how the season could look. Listen, if we delay, how many games do we delay or just completely cancel? And that's something they're going to be discussing in the next few weeks. One, they're holding out hope that for whatever reason, somehow, some way things get better out there. And then secondly, if it doesn't, what does a season look like if you delay it, and how much do you delay it? How much of a window do you give yourself to, one, hope that things get better, but two, also put yourself in a better situation and prepare better to make sure your teams and your players and your coaches are in a safer environment, as far as testing, and also guidelines and protocols when it comes to quarantining and isolating and all that stuff, so that a season of some sort can be put together and done so safely. Because, a lot of people want to look at the NBA and the MLB model, and that's just not It's not possible. Not with college football. They're not able to be in a bubble. These are hundreds of different campuses, thousands of different players living lives. This is not their job. They socialize. They talk to people out in the community. They party. They go out to restaurants and everything. This isn't their job. This isn't a situation where they stay at home because they know they have to stay at home. And there's going to be even more risk of them catching this virus and testing positive and obviously spreading it among their teammates. So it's almost an impossible task. From everybody I've talked to, it's just one of those things where the optimism has turned to pessimism, and it's almost like they're just hoping for a miracle to happen so that they can start the season on time. But it just doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Great point, Brandon. And the other part of this, I think David and I have kept harping on throughout this is just the fact that yes, we'll call them student athletes. We know better, but there are other students there, and the thing that we've kind of stuck with through the beginning is, hey, if kids are on campus, they're going to play football. Do the coaches kind of feel, the people that you're talking to, are they of similar type of thoughts? Because I'm yet to see a school. I mean, Harvard did it. But most of the schools that are in the Power Five are still hell-bent on kids coming back in August, along with the athletes that are coming back now. Do you see those two still running parallel, if you know what I mean?
I mean, it's possible, but, I've talked to head coaches on the FBS level, and I've yet to speak to one that believes the season's starting on time, which is, man, I hate sharing that, but that's just the truth from what I'm hearing from them. One coach I quoted in a story yesterday, he wished to be anonymous, an FBS coach said, listen, I don't know how we play a season because of our guidelines for players who get sick during the season, and also the contract tracing. The things just aren't up to snuff on all levels and all conferences. And for that matter, it's not universal in those guidelines about contact tracing. And that's an issue. There's a lot of things that on the ground in real time that these conferences are trying to figure out in real time, and they're lagging behind a little bit. And it's frustrating these head coaches because they'll come to their office, every few days and hear, there's 5 more positive tests or 2 more or whatever. And it's like, well, who were they around? Who were they working out with? And that's why you're seeing a lot of schools, after just a few people, testing positive, shutting down and pausing voluntary workouts because they've been around so many different teammates and people, and they don't know exactly sometimes who all they've been around or exposed. Ohio State, of course, yesterday being the biggest school yet, to pause voluntary workouts yesterday. So these coaches they're trying to remain optimistic. They're trying to put on a smile and be positive when they're around their team. But behind closed doors, all the ones I've talked to, they're kind of starting to lose hope a little bit. They think that they're kind of in a situation where they just can't handle this thing and kind of keep it in a bottle.
Brandon, one of the differences also between college football and the pro sports is that there's not a commissioner that can have the sport act as one. Do you think the Power 5 conferences will all make decisions the same? Or do you think that it could be one conference decides we think we can play at a certain date, and another conference is like, yeah, we can't play now. We're going to have to wait. Because I could see, like, if you just look at the Pac-12, between California and Arizona, well, that's half the conference. And, well, they got issues right now. And I could see where if for whatever one conference east of the Mississippi decides for whatever reason they want to go forward and the Pac-12 goes, yeah, we can't start on time. Do you think it's more likely all 5 conferences act in unison, or it's every man for himself?
Well, they want to try to act in unison in the Power 5 as far as if they're starting the season on time. From there, it's going to be decisions that are going to have to be made by individual conferences, with guidance, obviously, from local and state health officials, university presidents and chancellors. And then there's another issue that's really not being talked a lot about because it hasn't popped up yet, is just how do players react if they say, hey, we're starting the season on time, or we're delaying it? Because they will come together if they feel like that they're in a wrong situation, and because they feel like, and they have a big voice in this now. As we've seen the last couple of weeks, players have more power than ever for change. And if they don't like what they're seeing behind the scenes and on the ground, they could certainly change things themselves and make their voices heard about what's going on. But as far as just the decision makers in these conferences and these commissioners, I think they're trying to be on the same page as far as if they start the season on time. But this is going to be a regional decision. It's going to be region by region. It's not going to all be the same, even as far as start dates. And even within those conferences, you're not going to have start dates the same for all teams, because some teams are just not going to be able to play on time. Some are going to be completely ready to play on time. But the question is if their opponent's going to be, or if their conference is going to be ready. It's a mess. Logistically, it's just a big mess. And for everybody to be on the same page in the Power Five, it's just going to be next to impossible. But they're talking every day as the Autonomy Five as they do. And it's as close as we're ever going to get, or at least for right now, to a czar in college football, is them having these daily meetings as the Autonomy Five. But even so, this with them spread out as across the country and so many different teams, they're going to have to make their own decisions, and in the end it's going to be every man and every conference for themselves.
Okay, if I were to give you three scenarios right now, one is, well, I'm not even going to say a full season because you've pretty much poo-pooed that throughout this, but if we play just conference games or less than half a season or no season, where would you lean right now if you just your best guess?
I would say just conference games. I think, as I said, I think it's going to be more of a regional year. They're going to try and keep games as local as possible and within their conferences. I think it just makes sense from that standpoint if they're going to do that they keep it as a conference only schedule. The question is if you can actually play, 8 to 10 games in this environment. I think you got to build in some Saturdays there where if you have to cancel a week or two, you can potentially make it up. So trying to do a 12-game schedule by only playing conference opponents is probably something that they don't want to try and do if they delay the start of the season. If they delay the start of the season, I think you'll start seeing those hybrid models starting to come out and leak out about, all right, we're, the SEC, for example, 14 teams, you could play up to 12 games, without playing the same team, repeated. But I think they would have to come out with something that maybe they just play their 8 games and that helps them build in 4 weeks of kind of flex Saturdays, so to speak, to kind of work things out. But the other concern that they have to figure out and discuss is what does the college football playoff committee do if, say, a lot of schools are able to play and some are playing 10-game schedules or some are playing 8? How do they weigh that when things come down in November when they have to release the college football playoff poll? That's another thing they have to consider. But right now, I think they're just taking this thing step by step from a standpoint of literally day by day. It's like, can we play this week? All right. Can we play that next week? Can we play the week after that? They're going to keep kicking the can down the road, I think, in most Power 5 conferences until they can't anymore. And as I said, they're just going to delay until they can't play.
He's Brandon Marcello. He covers college football for 24/7 Sports. Follow Brandon on Twitter, the letter B, Marcello, Marcello. Brandon, thanks so much for your time and your insight. And next time we have you on, A, hopefully we're talking about football, and B, we'll talk more about the financial ramifications from this, whether or not COVID may just end the arms race as we know it, because there may not be enough money to buy more arms.
Well, I hope we're talking football soon and games. I think everybody wants that, but we got to do a better job to get to that point.
Brandon, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports.
I need a drink.
B Marcello.
I need a drink right now. I think I'm going to do a shot of vodka this break. That was as depressing as it gets right there.
I asked someone with CBS behind the scenes. I said, who's based out of New York. I said yesterday, so what you hearing? He goes, trying to remain optimistic, but I think the season starting on time is less than 50-50. Now, that's just, on July 8th when I asked.
But it's been a bad couple of weeks.
No doubt.
I mean, the numbers and all that, but I just mean the optimism of people is really dwindling. Everybody. It doesn't matter where you go right now. We were pretty optimistic in June.
Absolutely. We said this. If you go back a month, June 9th, and you asked people, they were optimistic. We were starting on time. We were going to play a full season, the whole deal.
I mean,
1 month.
I played golf yesterday, so I saw people I hadn't seen in a while, and I kind of joked that, hey, a Mark Miller sighting. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I'm Mr. Mom. The wife's going to work every day. I got to take care of my daughter. I said, I hope that executive order is true. I said, but I have a lot of trouble believing my daughter's going to school in August.
And if you take anything from that interview with Brandon Marcello, just take the fact that every FBS coach that he has talked to, not a one thinks the season will start on time. Not one. That's very interesting because, coaches have one thing on their mind, and that's football. And they were hell-bent on starting practice by a certain date, all right, getting kids back on campus, etc. Very interesting. Thanks to Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports. Today was the day when, coming up, 12 minutes before the hour, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Drive home with the Doug Gottlieb Show.
Dwayne Haskins said that he's feeling more dynamic after losing 17 pounds. Can you recover from a bad rookie season? Of course you can.
That was depressing, David.
It was.
All you that bitch about Seth on this show, you're during that interview, you're going, God, can we get Seth back? I need someone that's a little more optimistic.
Design their vision to meet their individual lifestyle needs. Imagine life without cataracts and being able to see clearly without glasses or contacts. Dr. Jonathan France and his team of highly skilled specialists at France Eye Care bringing you state-of-the-art technology through the light-adjustable lens. This lens, made of a special photosensitive material, allows prescription adjustments to be made after cataract surgery.
That just bummed me out. Not gonna lie.
It's lights on after cataract surgery with a light adjustable lens. Call France Eye Care today to find out if you qualify and see your future in 2020. Dial ** 2020 from your cell phone or call 239-418-0999. France Eye Care.
Don't walk, ride to Galliana Kia in Fort Myers.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was. Yes, Hops is right, too. The first commercial, and Giro can't do that, but you're right. The first commercial after that interview should have been Don't Be a Spreader.
So apparently there is an Australian Alps?
Yes.
Ha, ha, ha. That's hysterical. That was depressing. I don't have any booze in the house, but I may have to go.
That is. Exactly, Todd. Now I miss Seth. That's what I'm telling you. That anybody that bitches about Seth's germaphobe, I don't know where Sean is this morning, but Sean, I'll tell you what, Juan, this whole pizza thing has me in a huge dilemma because I think we have to eat all these pizzas in person, and I now have like a 2-week pizza bender ahead of me to try all of this pizza.
I have a conference call with one of the two networks today. First one to talk about life in the pursuit of happiness. So.
You want a pizza for it?
Wow. God, I want a pizza just for breathing. Julie said to me last night, she goes, you're doing really well I'm worried about you. I go, yeah. She goes, there's a lot of food that you haven't had for a couple of months now. I go, oh, I know. I know. I don't think I'm allowed to have it. She goes, oh, no, I know you're not allowed to have it. But
is this a forever thing, or do you have to get to a
well,
certain
I think,
weight?
well, because now they feel that I'm a type 2 diabetic. Okay, they're like, we're treating you as if you have a type 2 diabetes. Because apparently my numbers when I went in, in the emergency 2 months ago were staggering. They were so high. They were like, this probably prevented you from having a stroke at some point. They're like, not only did you get in here just in time for us to catch the cancer before it spread, but it allowed us to get your sugar under control before something really bad happened. I asked the surgeon, I go, so what was my sugar? And he goes, yeah, you don't want to know. I go, no, really? He goes, well, the first reading we got was 500. And I go, really? He goes, yeah. Now the next reading was like 380 something. He goes, but the very first reading we got was 500. I'm like, well, I know it's not supposed to be above $1.20. He goes, exactly. I said, hey, I had just had a big pan of ziti. I go, only a few hours earlier. I go, so that probably skewed it a little bit. He goes, yeah, a little bit. He goes, not 300 points.
You're live.
7 minutes before the top of the hour, a little later than we want to be. Thanks so much for listening to Miller and Moulton.
Yeah, I've got
we'll talk a little hockey next hour, but right now, without further ado, Mark's got to get going. It's time for Today Was the Day When.
Today was the day when, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
I mentioned earlier in the week that the A's passed up on Babe Ruth. It was today that the Red Sox purchased the Slugger's contract from the minor league Baltimore Orioles in 1914. 1933, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets were sold. They were renamed the Philadelphia Eagles. 1956, Bob Horn out. Dick Clark in.
Ooh.
He'd stay with Bandstand from 1956 until 1989. Bob Horn is the Wally Pipp of television broadcasting.
Nice.
British Open in 1960, Australian. I don't know if he was from the Australian Alps, David, but Cal Nagel wins his only major, beating Arnie in the year of the 1960 Open Championship.
Arnie had won the Masters in the U.S. Open, and he beat Arnie by 1, or else Arnie would have been 3/4 of the way to the Slam.
1968, Wilt Chamberlain becomes the first reigning MVP to be traded when he went from Philly to the Lakers. Today in 77, the duel in the sun as Tom beats Jack. They played the final 2 rounds together at Turnberry. 1989, Boris beat Stefan Edberg. Steffi beat Martina Navratilova. Both finals played on the same day because of rain, and I was there. Saw both.
I know you were. That was awesome.
95, Pete Sampras wins his 3rd straight, beating Boris Becker. And the Grateful Dead played their last concert today in 1995 at Soldier Field. Jerry would die of a heart attack a month later while in rehab. So take a little time, maybe listen to a Dead show today. It'll put you in a better mood. 2000, Pete wins his 4th straight Wimbledon, beating Patrick Rafter. 2016, Serena equals Steffi with her 22nd Grand Slam singles title. If you were born today, you share your birthday with Clarence Campbell, creator of the Campbell Conference, David, and the 3rd president of the NHL. Niall Kinnick, born today in 1918. If you're an Iowa fan, you know who that is. Bon Scott, the original AC/DC singer, born today in 1946. O.J. Simpson, born today in 1947. John Tesh created that catchy NBA jingle, David. Born today in 52.
Mm-hmm. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Tom Hanks is 64 today. Kelly McGillis is 63.
1 minute.
I have trouble watching Top Gun thinking that. Courtney Love and Scott Verplank, both born today in 1964. Jack White is 45. And Fred Savage from the Wonder Years, David, is 44 years old. If that wasn't a gut punch in the last interview, that news sure as hell should be to some of you.
That doesn't hurt as much as earlier this week, Ralph Sampson turning 60.
Okay.
I got to be honest with you.
And that is today was the day when on this July the 9th.
Mike Kelly from the NHL Network. He will join us coming up in a matter of moments. Yes, hockey is going to resume by August 1st. Training camps next week.
That's what they're telling us.
Hey, they're going north of the border. They got a shot. Miller and Moulton.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Core-Tec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
I don't know if Kelly McGillis is in the Top Gun suite.
Core-Tec that you have. You also have other Core-Tec products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tec
now
stone
the
product.
instructor,
Looks like tile,
I think,
looks
is
like
right.
stone, but it's Core-Tec, so you get the softness,
Because who was it? The
and the easy installation.
I
to
think
go
it's
with it. We also have
I was reading something the other day.
wood, but with a more stable
One of the other guys ended up. He met McGillis. Like one of the guys on the crew met her, and they ended up getting married. One of the other, fighter pilot actors, if you will.
Oh, really?
But because he was talking, apparently she could party.
We miss our baseball.
This was a party. Think about all guys, and they're going at it. She could keep up with the boys, apparently.
How old is she?
63.
Well, then she was right around 30.
Yeah.
When that movie, because wasn't that movie like 86?
Yes, exactly when it was. My senior year in high school.
So she was 20. Filming it, she was 28, 29. Yeah. That's the other thing that was so fascinating about that Days of Thunder McGee story on ESPN.com is that, how big it was for NASCAR to get the people who decided they wanted to come together for this movie. I mean, Tom Cruise's string of movies leading up to Days of Thunder.
Oh, I mean, born on the 4th of July.
Well, and just also, you go back to, obviously Risky Business and just the series. I mean, he has a 6-year run of movies. He made the movie with Paul Newman.
Well, he was just coming off Color of Money when this
Money, right? I mean,
because that's where his love of cars came from. I mean, that's where they pointed out with because Newman was obviously a driver. I mean, Newman used to try to drive for a while.
Yeah, he actually competitively raced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to call this guy. Jesus.
It's all right.
Mike, good morning. Good. Mark Miller and David Moulton here in Southwest Florida. We are going on in 15 seconds. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
You know what? I'll try to bring you back some fish.
And Moulton.
Okay, you drop it off at the front door.
Probably in the mailbox. Go back, Ike.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
As we approach a couple minutes past the top of the hour, thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, the 9th of July, here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Mike Kelly, not the voice of the St. Louis Blues, the analyst for NHL Network and thepointhockey.com, thepointhockey.com. He's kind enough to join us. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Kelly NHL. Mike, top of the morning to you. Hope you and your family are doing well through all this. How are you?
Hey, we're doing good. Thank you. We got to set the table by disappointing everyone. You said not the voice of the St. Louis Blues. I'm sure people would have rather heard not Mike Kelly, but
but I just wanted to make sure people know there are a couple of Mike Kellys, all right, associated with hockey. Listen, you're a data guy. You know, what do you make of this restart here, which training camps start next week? By the end of the month, they show up in Toronto and Edmonton. By early August, they're going to play. Do you use any of the earlier year data? I mean, honestly, where are you in approaching the restart?
You know, I had a really interesting conversation with an NHL assistant coach yesterday about kind of what should be valued going into these play-in rounds when you're looking at matchups and previews and that kind of thing. As you mentioned, I come from it from an analytics standpoint primarily. But, you know, what he talked about was who are the teams that are going to be able to settle in quickest and not require, you know, some players require 5-10 games to kind of get their feet under them. What are the teams that are going to be able to execute their game plan right off the hop? Which goalies are going to be able to come in and play well right off the hop? Not all of them. We know that. So which ones? That's what we don't know. And it's unprecedented. It really is unprecedented. So, you know, how does being in a, you know, quote unquote bubble going to affect certain players? Not everybody's the same. You look at any industry, right? Something like that would affect people in different ways. There's a lot of unknowns, so it is difficult. All I can do is look at it in the ways that I've always done, which is you know, through the lens of data analytics, try to understand matchup inefficiencies that may exist with teams, how teams play, how teams can exploit each other. There will still be some of that, but yeah, I think we're leaning heavier on the unknown, the unexpected.
Well, and Mike, I'm sure as you would attest to, there's all the data in the world, but a hot goalie's a hot goalie. And I thought the point that you just made there is the one that would be scariest for all these NHL coaches, because we don't know what goalie is going to be hot coming off this thing. And we've seen 8 seeds win Stanley Cups because their goalie got hot at the right time. In a sport where goaltending's everything, is that the toughest from a data standpoint to try to decipher anything, Mike?
It is. The way that I've looked at it so far is you look at goaltending performance in the ways that I would. You know, save percentage to me is something to point you in the right direction. It does not factor in shot quality, so it's not the be-all, end-all to me. There are ways to do that. That to me is a better indicator. And then what I've done, and I talked to a couple of ex-NHL goalies before I did this to get their thoughts, but I said, you know, the first 5 games, the first 10 games of a season, how close of a measuring stick do you think that would be to what these goalies are going to be facing now with this layoff? And both guys I talked to said, look, it's not perfect, but it's probably the best, the closest you could come. So when you do that, you see there are goalies that traditionally start a little bit slower, and there are goalies that seem to have no problem stepping right in and playing at a high level. So that's the way I've approached goaltending. I'll be honest, I don't think that there's a scenario where goaltending is going to be more crucial than with the Florida Panthers. Just because that matchup against the Islanders, I think they can win it if they get good, not even great, just good goaltending from Sergei Bobrovsky, but we haven't seen a lot of that this year. So he is a real big X factor, I think.
And he's a guy who has such a high ceiling as a goalie. I mean, he was tremendous last year in the Lightning series. If they get a hot Bobrovsky, everybody will forget the first 4+ months of this year. Speaking of goalies, like the Rangers match up with Carolina. And yes, I'm a Rangers fan, but I don't bring this up for that reason. But Lundqvist's record against Carolina is dominant. But Lundqvist isn't their number one goalie anymore. So, what would you do if you're the Rangers? Because the data says if the Carolina Panthers are within 200 miles of Henrik Lundqvist, you put him between the pipes.
Well, things like that I don't put a ton of stock in, to be honest. I don't know what Henrik Lundqvist's record is against Carolina all time. Let's say it's really good, as you mentioned. Most of the guys that were involved in those games don't play for these teams. So I look at more recent history. Henrik Lundqvist was fine this year. Igor Shesterkin in the 12 games that he played was incredible. And Alexander Georgiev, I thought was better than Lundqvist. In fact, I know he was. So it's not so much a knock on Lundqvist because, again, he didn't play poorly, but there are clearly two younger, at this point, better goalies in New York. And so, you can bring as many goalies as you want to this play-in series. So I don't know that you need to have Henrik Lundqvist starting in the press box. You value that playoff experience. You don't know how these younger goalies are going to react. But I wouldn't start him. He wouldn't be my starter. And I wouldn't have much reservation putting Shesterkin in net. He seems unflappable. If for some reason it doesn't go well, it's such a luxury because I think the world of Alexander Georgiev. I think he could be a great platoon goalie on any team, potentially a starting goalie. And then you've got King Henrik. But, to me, he'd be number 3 on my depth chart right now.
He's Mike Kelly. He's an analyst with the NHL Network, also with thepointhockey.com. Thepointhockey.com. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Kelly NHL.
Anybody get a benefit from this break? Like, I know Getzel might be able to play. How many teams are going to get players back that wouldn't have had them in the playoffs, and how much of that will factor into what you're thinking going forward?
Oh, it's a great question. And a lot of teams. I mean, Jake Gensel's a 40-goal, first-line, quality scoring winger, real smart player, and plays really well with Sidney Crosby. So that's huge. That's huge for Pittsburgh. And they've got a lot of depth at forward, so that's a scary team to me. Columbus Blue Jackets are a great example. They had more man games lost to injury than any team in the NHL this year. Now you've got Seth Jones, who's a Norris caliber defenseman, Cam Atkinson, who scored 40 goals, Oliver Bjorkstrand, who is going to be a 30-goal scorer annually, I think, all coming back into the lineup. That to me, amongst other things, tips the scales for them against Toronto. So I think Columbus really benefits from missing guys. But that's a huge thing that's going to be so cool about when this playoff, the qualifying round and the playoffs begin, is as crazy as this whole scenario is with COVID and the bubble and the 24-team tournament and all of this stuff. We will never see a scenario where teams are going to be healthier, God willing that there isn't an outbreak, but healthier going into a postseason. It just doesn't happen through the rigors of an 82-game regular season. And because nobody's played hockey in months, a lot of guys who wouldn't have been available for the playoffs are going to be. So, again, God willing that there are no big outbreaks and a lot of players unable to play because of that, we're going to see the healthiest postseason, potentially ever, which is pretty cool.
Well, that's true. And Mark, how many times have you said over the years, your favorite part of the hockey playoffs are actually the early rounds, because by the time you get to the conference finals and Stanley Cup finals, these teams are so banged up that oftentimes the level of play can actually be better early than it is late because they're so beaten up. Mike, how weird is it going to be? Hockey, of all the sports, hockey with no fans. A sport in which these guys talk about energy. I mean, they put lines together because they're energy lines to create energy. Hockey talks about momentum, a shift, turning things around. And they're going to basically play for 9 weeks, and it's going to feel like practice.
It's going to be really weird. And, I'm sure you guys will be talking to players. I'd love to hear, what a lot of guys think. I think it will affect some more than others. There are certainly players who don't need any extra motivation to give 100% on any given shift, on any given battle. And we know who those, players are, who those type of players are. There are guys that would obviously draw off of that. And when's the last time a lot of these guys played in front of, forget no fans, but less than 10,000? So I would have to think it's a pretty bizarre scenario. And I'm interested to see what the NHL will do in terms of the environment. You've seen other sports go as far as putting cardboard cutouts in the stands, pumping in music and on the television, pumping in fake, fan sound. The NHL, I'm sure, will have a few tricks up its sleeve, but I'm interested to see what they'll do. But yeah, it's going to be bizarre, especially when you get to those kind of high intensity moments of a game. It's 2-1. There's a minute left. The goalie's pulled. There's a coach's timeout and a big face-off, and the music's going, and there's no one in the building. I think in that way, it will be more bizarre in hockey than any other sport.
There is no doubt. And as you know, I spent many a year as a minor league hockey broadcaster, Mike, and have called games in Miami in the East Coast Hockey League. I think there was about 180 people at one of those games. And the players after the game were like, we could hear every word you said from the bench. And, particularly when our team scored, we were the road team, and you hear this goal, and guys are looking at me laughing on the bench. And I keep picturing that with, these great NHL announcers and how they're going to do all of these things. It is going to be bizarre. And I don't know how you pump sound in. I mean, you've been to a practice before. A hockey practice is loud.
Yeah.
When you don't have fans to absorb sound, hockey practices are really loud, and it's a bad noisy. It's not a hockey game noisy.
It's uncomfortable.
It's annoying. So it's very strange to me. And you're right on a lot of fronts. Hey, who do you on the side of guys getting someone back? Who do you think is in? I don't want to say trouble, but I mean the Bruins were just kicking everybody's ass all year long. They were head and shoulders above the East and even the Lightning this year. Who do you worry about? Whether it's St. Louis or the Bruins, who do you worry about coming out of this as to having a great season really ended because of this long layoff?
You know what? One thing I want to touch on real quick. You talk about the empty, the no fans and everything. Like when a player dumps a puck in and it hits the backboards, it's going to be so loud. It'll be jarring for people, right? You've heard that in practice too.
Yes.
So, it's crazy. You know what? I don't know about worry for me. A team like Boston, I think, got kind of screwed more than anybody else with this whole format. They basically had first locked up, and now they've got to play. And it starts with equal. I would have liked to see, maybe start Boston with a 2-point lead in this format and kind of work your way down a little bit. But yeah, they have the most to lose because they were almost assured of first place in the conference and everything that comes with that. But I don't worry about the Boston Bruins. I mean, we just talk about things, preparedness, intensity in empty arenas, kind of some of those things that are difficult to quantify, the emotional aspects of the game. Boston, they've got so much playoff experience, Bergeron, Chara, proven leaders. So I don't really worry about a team like that. But yeah, I think they got the short end of the stick more than anybody else. But the big thing here is, I'm somebody that in my line of work at least attempts to quantify as much as possible, to understand as much as possible, to not go on a hunch, but to really try to understand. And there is so much unknown here. So it's, I can tell you my best guess at what team might be negatively affected by this, but without knowing every guy well on every team, it's hard to say how people are going to react. I know one thing though. I don't worry about a team like Boston. I think they could play a game on the top of Mount Everest if they had to in Canada Goose Jackets against somebody, and they'd find a way to win.
Mike, we appreciate your time and your insight. Safe travels if you're doing any, and hopefully we can catch up during the playoffs.
Yeah, that sounds great, guys. Appreciate you having me, and wish you all the best health and happiness to your families as well.
Mike Kelly with the NHL Network and thepointhockey.com. Thepointhockey.com. He's an analyst, data-driven. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Kelly NHL. Mark, you made a point earlier in the interview, which I think applies to Boston. They've played a lot of hockey in recent years. They have a veteran team. And when you play 100-plus games one year and 100-plus games the next, and usually by the third year and the fourth year, you can get worn down. If they can find themselves during this, the Charas and the Marchands of the world, they're fresh. They're training camp fresh in the playoffs. They haven't felt like this in 15 years.
You're right. And they are an old team.
Yes.
By today's NHL standards, Boston's great, but they are an older team.
And if they can just get, literally, you could see where if they can get through the first round, you might just put them in the finals. Because, Dusty Baker has an adage, and granted, it's baseball, so this is apples to oranges, but Dusty always believed that it took veteran teams longer to find their groove. But when they found it, they stayed in their groove longer.
I really like Pittsburgh in this format, for the record. Really like Pittsburgh. They're also an older team. They get Getzel back. You're going to have a healthy Crosby, a healthy Malkin at this time of year. I'd watch out for the Penguins. And I hope to God the Lightning make a run, but
I hope for the Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
The Lightning make a run. Oh, man. I don't know how long they can keep the band together.
Well, I hope for Cooper's sake they make a run, because someone's going to fall if it doesn't happen, and it's not his fault that they got swept last year. I don't know what he does.
And it's not going to be the second-year GM taking the fall either.
No.
He's going to be the one assigned to, make the necessary changes to get us over the hump. But it should be tremendous. It will just sound weird. I don't know how they're going to buffer the sound, because you mentioned it. It's like the first time, and most people have never been in the pits or in a NASCAR garage. But when there's no fans and there's nothing to buffer the noise of those cars, when they start it up, it's so loud, it's uncomfortable. And Mark, at a hockey rink, when they're banging those pucks off the walls and off the glass and there is nothing to absorb it, it's got a little bit, it's like a loud yet tinny sound. And and it makes you cringe. You're like, oh, stop it. It's too loud.
Absolutely. Now, if anybody's been for warm-up, you know how loud warm-up is. And there's music playing and there are people there.
Right.
Now we're taking all of that away.
It will be interesting also, the NHL deciding what they're going to do with the announcers, because you mentioned it. There are great hockey announcers, legendary hockey announcers. Will they just send the national media? I read something in which they didn't think the national media even was going to be in the rinks until the conference finals and the finals, that they thought they were going to keep Emmerich and company away for the first two rounds before they brought them in, which I thought was interesting. But, Mike Lang can still scratch my back with a hacksaw.
You're damn right he can.
Whether he's in a studio or whether he's in the press box in Toronto. So there's a reason for the Penguins to have a run right there. Just to be able to listen to Mike Lang for as many times as we can.
Absolutely. Found out from my neighbor that's a big Mets fan. I talked to them yesterday, David. And she says, I said, hey, had our baseball guy on. He likes your Mets. He goes, everybody likes him before the season starts. That was her actual response to me. But she did tell me that the MLB TV package, the computer one, $60 for the season. Basically $1 a game. I know you're not going to get it.
No,
but
I'm not. I'm not. But then again, if they start like the Mariners last year, who knows? I could be easily swayed. Remember the Mets on opening day. If you're going to make one baseball bet this year, you bet the Mets on opening day. The Mets record the last 40 years on opening day, they have a winning percentage of like 75% for some strange reason. And the Mets, their first 8 to 10 years of existence, could not win on opening day. But for whatever reason, in the last 40, 50 years, the Mets on opening day are money. So Jacob deGrom against, I think it's the Braves. Got to bet them. I don't know about the other 59 days, but you got to bet deGrom against the Braves opening day because the Mets win opening day. Miller and Moulton. You can chime in via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line at 479-5551, 479-5551. Our poll question at that Mark Miller and the David Moulton on Twitter and millerandmoulton.com is, should Deshaun Jackson be fired / cut by the Eagles for his anti-Semitic comments? Yes or no? And it's about 3-1 yes right now. So far, he has not been cut, and the expectation is he will not be cut, if for no other reason than Riley Cooper and his N-bomb video from 7 years ago. Miller and Moulton. Thanks for being with us. The Good, Bad, and Ugly is about 25 minutes away here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
What time is it? There are times when we do this.
It is a crazy, crazy day.
Crazy.
There are other times.
David, you should be very happy right now. According to Daniel Kaplan, 5 minutes ago on Twitter, just saw this. Bids are due today for the Mets. Look for Steve Cohen to put in a bid and likely win out.
If I was Cohen, he offered $2.6 billion, however many months ago, for 80% of the Mets and none of the television network. And apparently the Wilpons have to sell and sell by the end of the year for tax purposes.
Right.
If I was Cohen, I'd look at the Wilpons, and apparently no one else is bidding $2 billion. They're all trying to get it for between like 1.4 and whatever. If I was Cohen, I'd look at the Wilpons and I'd say the same $2.6 billion, but I want everything.
Yeah.
100% of the team and the television network. I don't understand how the Mets lose money, but apparently the Mets lose money, and without the television network, they're not a profitable venture. So it's another reason why, no offense, if I'm spending $2.6
billion, I want the network.
I got to be able to make some money. I don't think I'm asking too much here. I guess Cohen's worth like 11, by the way.
Hardee's presents the new spicy Western Bacon Cheeseburger. It's just like the Western Bacon Cheeseburger with charbroiled beef, crispy bacon and onion rings, and topped with tangy barbecue sauce.
Le Batard did a podcast yesterday. He was on vacation and did a podcast to address the shortening of his show. I may listen.
This is going to end so badly. He is going to.
He said it felt like after Jason Barrett just put out a tweet. After losing an hour of his radio show, Le Batard Show said it felt like a demotion, but was told by network executives that it isn't.
Right.
Took time from his vacation to record a podcast addressing the hour he will lose from his radio show.
Not only that, that's a zoo hour. You know, he used to have the zoo guy at noon. You know, he's going to have to move some things around.
Pro Football Focus is saying take the over on the Texans 7.5 wins.
Really?
11th easiest schedule in the NFL, according to PFF.
They have won, 4 of the last 5 divisions?
Right. You're betting that Deshaun Watson can go 500. That's what the bet is. I mean,
okay, first half of the schedule's tough. At Kansas City, home for Baltimore. At Pittsburgh, home for Minnesota. Jacksonville, at Tennessee, at Green Bay. I mean, 6 of their first 7, Mark, are really hard. However, only 2 of their last 9 games are against teams that were above 500 last year, and both those games are at home. They need to just survive the first 7 games. Because if they go 3-4, they could still win double-digit games.
So, by the way, this PPP money thing is gonna be the story of the day. Because so far I've already read this morning that Brady got $1 million.
Correct.
For his company, and people are not real happy about that. Just got another, Maury Brown for Forbes did a story that minor league teams tap between $36.5 and $76.25 million for minor league baseball teams. You know, what happens if these I'm just curious. You get all this money and then you go to business.
Well, but, okay, how many teams? And if you divide it up, that's a few $100,000 a team.
I know. I'm just...
I mean, that might keep them afloat.
No, exactly. Right. I mean, I've got to think that, don't you think that Hoffman got it for the Blades? He had to.
Yes. Don't you see what United announced yesterday? It's what everybody said. They got their money, and it goes through September. And United let their workers know yesterday, October 1, you're losing your job. 36,000 of them.
You're live.
Miller and Moulton at 27 minutes past 8 o'clock on this Thursday morning. Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream the show every day at millerandmoulton.com. We broadcast it every day, at least Monday through Friday anyway, on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Sign up for them. They're interactive, and they are free. And as you found out during the last commercial break, not always talking sports either.
That interview with Mike Kelly was much needed by me. I'm in a better mood. After Brandon Marcello painted such a grim outlook of college football in 2020. And I'm thankful that Brandon came on the show. He was a good interview. He's talked to a lot of people. And the news he delivered from talking to all those people sucks. There's just no two ways to put it. He flat out said he's talked every coach that he's spoken to. And he has talked to a lot of them on and off the record. And off the record, they're all saying, I don't know how we start on time. Not one coach that he talked to believes that the college football season will begin on time. That's depressing.
Let's be honest, though. Let's be honest. How much of a vote do you think that the head coach is going to get in this decision?
None.
I don't know how much of a vote the athletic directors are going to get.
None.
In this decision.
I don't think either of those two people have a say-so.
I mean, I think the ADs are going to chime in, and they're going to let their university presidents, but they're going to let their conference commissioner know, hey, this is what we really want to do. But, I mean, do we think anyone other than Greg Sankey is making the decision for the SEC?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think the presidents of the universities are, David.
I think the presidents of the university make their decision once they announce that they're having or not having kids on campus. And we already know that every school in the SEC has already announced, every president of those 14 universities has already announced their kids will be on campus by no later than the last week of August. Now, doesn't mean they can't change their mind.
Well, and that to me is the next shoe to drop, David. At some point, at the rate things are going, don't you think a university president's going to, let's just take Vanderbilt, because they just ended, again, their whole sports information department.
Yeah.
And absorbed it on campus. They are an SEC school that basically has said we do not need an athletic department. I'm not joking.
No. If you truth tested, all right, the rest of the SEC,
they'd throw them out.
I was going to say, with everything that Vandy brings to the table, and some baseball, they're great. All right. We all know about their academics, some other sports they're really good in too. I mean, they've had really good basketball teams on both sides for, long periods of time. However, we all know Vandy, great academic school. If you were to talk to the rest of the SEC right now and go thumbs up or thumbs down on Vandy, they'd be like, get rid of them.
They couldn't kick them out fast enough. I'm going to bring this up again. They just dumped their entire sports information department and absorbed it inside the regular university administration.
Right.
Nobody in collegiate sports is doing that, let alone in the
Right.
But that being said, that's the school that I could look at in the SEC saying, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We're not bringing kids back to campus.
And maybe they change their tune. And this is what we've talked about. You know, it only takes one school to really put a conference commissioner in a bind. Okay, what do we do if so-and-so says, hey, I can't play? I mean, listen, let's be honest. Let's just talk Pac-12 right now. I mean, listen, we got our own issues in Florida. Okay, but you and I are of the belief that the Florida schools are going to press through. I mean, there was someone representing the University of Miami at the White House 2 days ago who flashed the U sign. You know, hey, we're going forward. We're playing. Okay, all right, fair enough. But you got 6 Pac-12 schools in the states of California and Arizona right now. And they're scrambling in Arizona. I mean, they are scrambling. And they are admittedly scrambling. Their governor and public officials are on television saying we're scrambling. And they've reversed courses on a lot of policies that they've had in the last few weeks. I mean, if you're Herm Edwards and you're Kevin Sumlin, I mean, don't you think you're looking around your state right now going, man, are these guys going to be able to get their act together fast enough so that we can play?
Hey, I mean, you know, and we're just talking football, but, you know, you brought this up with the Ivy League not starting until J1, and that affects FGCU. Both men's and women's teams have home games scheduled with Ivy League opponents before the first of the year that are going to get canceled or moved to next year, whatever they do. David, USC at FGCU.
Right.
What would you put the odds of that game happening right now? Basketball, starting the season, that's November
10th.
November 10th.
Yeah, first day of the college basketball season.
Okay, so that's, you know, tomorrow will be the 10th. It would actually probably be a better thing for tomorrow, but being that, you know, a few months away here.
Right.
We're 3 months,
4
months away, rather, from that.
Mm-hmm.
We're 4 months away. What odds would you put on that game happening on November 10th, 2020 at Alico Arena?
I think right now, if you're being optimistic, I think it's no better than a coin flip.
Bingo.
Because you have to wonder, will the big boy conferences, will they play, especially, I mean, come on. I mean, Andy's doing FGCU a solid. Well, let's be honest about this. Okay? I mean, Andy did this really out of the goodness of his heart. Now, he's got Fly and FGCU already came to them last year, is going to come to them in the following year. So it is a 2-for-1. But
he didn't have to do a 2-for-1. He didn't have to do this.
Man, there has not been a Power 5 school play men's basketball at Alico Arena since Miami did in 2013. And actually, I think the game took place in November of 2012.
Yes, that's for sure. Yes, it was before the first of the year.
Right. So it was the 2013 season, but it took place in late 2012. So we're talking, it's 8 years since a Power 5 school has played inside Alico Arena on the men's side. Now, the women have been able to schedule about a dozen of them for a variety of reasons. And if it's not for Andy, I mean, you know, we could come up, when's the next Power 5 school that you think is going to walk in the doors at Alico Arena for men's basketball?
I could argue never.
Well, put it this way, since it will have been 8 years, we could ask the question, do you know, plus or minus 8 years when we think it'll happen again.
2028, does it happen again? And
Right.
I would right now I would vote no.
You'd vote the over.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. I'd tell you this much. Joe Dooley could stay at East Carolina for 8 years, and I don't think they show up here.
No, well, for a variety of reasons, I don't think it happens. But getting back to USC for a moment, don't you think that, you know, Andy's boss is going to look at him and say, let's talk non-conference here. How many of these games do we really need to play? I mean, how many times do we have to? And granted, and USC, by the way, does not fly private. USC actually flies coach. And so don't you think at some point that the AD sits down and goes, all right, how many of these do we have to play? And really, if you look at their schedule, there's like 3 of them that they have to play because I think 2 of them are on national television. And so, that's Andy, I do not think will cancel the game. Like that, I would bet on. Andy would not cancel the game because Andy also still recruits Florida. Andy's actually still gets players from Florida to come to him for it because he spent all those years at Florida State and the 2 years at FGCU. He knows a lot of people and he's still got a little bit of a name in this state. So I think Andy actually really wants to play the game for a variety of reasons. But this could be one of those deals where Andy's boss taps him on the shoulder and goes, do we really have to fly there this year? I mean, can we put this off a year? Which may be tough because FGCU's on their schedule for 2021. And then, do you count on 2 years from now? Hey, listen, we're still going to keep the game, but, we got to move this to 2022, when it's open in our schedule. And then you wonder, will Andy still be there? Okay. Will Andy have a new boss who may be like, we're not playing a game like that? I mean, there's a whole bunch, or since it's the 3rd game of a 2-for-1, oftentimes what does the big boy do?
Just
they
buys
buy
them
themselves out of the game. Right.
And if you asked Fly right now, a little bit of truth serum, with losing 2 games that he thought were going to be wins, that he's going to have to replace with games that aren't going to be as easy.
Probably not. Right.
More than likely.
Right.
If taking a for sure L off the schedule isn't the worst thing in the world.
And then here's the double-edged sword to this game. I mean, this is the centerpiece of their season ticket campaign, and this was going to be damn near. I think this game would have been close to, if not a sellout.
Guarantee it would be a sellout. There are so many people just because of the name USC, and I know it's not football, it's basketball, but USC doesn't come to Florida ever.
No.
I know it's basketball, but it's an iconic team name. You get to go see the U.S. I talked about it earlier when I went to a World Series game and it was the Yankees. It just felt different. You see the USC Trojans in your backyard. That just is different, David.
And for those that jumped on the Dunk City bandwagon and may still be on it, or whatever the case may be, there's also a part of you. I mean, honestly, it was the one bad thing about, Andy obviously had to leave. I mean, you get offered that much money, you got to go. Okay, but Andy never got the final standing ovation, if you will, from Southwest Florida.
No, because they didn't know who he was before this started.
Okay, and so that's the other thing in which the fan part of you, hey, we're coming tonight. Why? I want to see Andy. I want to be there. I want to yell. Basically, there will be 1,000 if the game gets played. There will be 1,000 people that will come up to him and literally say thank you. Thank you for helping give us what is, until proven otherwise, probably going to be the sports highlight of this region. Until proven otherwise.
No. It will be. Don't worry.
Right. I mean,
there's nothing greater that's going to happen sports-wise in this region in our lifetime, David. It's not.
Right. Because even if they were to go to the Sweet 16 again, it's never going to be the phenomenon that was. So it's another reason why it's difficult to ever imagine something being on that scale. But also, if you're FGCU, if you can't have fans at this game, that's something we haven't talked about through all this. What's the point of getting Andy and USC here if you can't make money off of it?
Right, and that was why I said Fly, David. If you asked Fly, because Fly's not concerned with season tickets the way that Ken Kavanaugh is. I made a very specific reason why I said if you asked Fly, he might want to take the L off.
And for those that don't know, Michael Fly, head coach of FGCU, Ken Kavanaugh, AD at FGCU.
Yeah, so I think Ken would be, are you kidding me? I need this. We're ringing the damn cash registers. We've got this Hall of Fame thing. This is a big moment for that athletic department.
And, with the Ivy League news yesterday that they're pushing their winter sports season back to no earlier than January 1st. I mean, you've got basketball coaches now. Tom Izzo said was it yesterday or the day before, in which Tom Izzo said, hey, everybody, wear your masks so that we can have a season. And he's also thinking, have a season with fans. I mean, think about it. You're a college athletic department, especially if you're a big boy. Now, FGCU doesn't have football, but basketball is their big moneymaker. Okay. They need as much revenue as they can from their two basketball programs. Also, they have a women's program that averages 2,200 people a game. Okay. Most women's basketball programs average 220 a game. They average 2,200.
Right. That's probably one of the 10 best draws in women's college basketball in the country.
It is one of the 40. I mean, it is. I've looked it up.
Okay.
It's one of they have their top 40 in attendance in the sport. And they don't pad the numbers either. Those are their tickets. And they had anyway, and they still do. They got a couple of good home games on the schedule this year. They want to be able to sell tickets. And so we talk about the financial impact it could have on the small university in Southwest Florida. I mean, Mark, if you're not selling tickets to football, how confident are you're going to be able to sell tickets to basketball? We talked about this. Most athletic departments have two sports that make money. Two. Well, they only make money if you can put people in the stands. Otherwise, every single thing you'll do as an athletic department will lose money. Every minute of every hour of every day for this entire school year, you will lose money.
And we began talking about Stanford cutting 11 programs.
Stanford, which is and this is not up for debate either. Stanford is the best athletic department in the country. The best.
They cut 11 varsity sports.
At the end
there
of
have been 15 college tennis teams that are done in 2020. 5 golf programs done. We're just getting started. If there are no fans, and I know most of you don't give a damn about non-revenue generating sports in college. The fact of the matter is, if we've already cut this many, take a second to think about no fans in football, no fans in basketball, and what that will do to athletic departments around the country.
Boise State dropped baseball the other day. 2 MAC schools have dropped baseball. I mean, I think there's a half a dozen Division I baseball programs that have been dropped here in the last 60 to 90 days. Boise State dropped baseball. Miller and Moulton. The good, the bad, and the ugly. To wrap up this Thursday edition, our poll question: should Deshaun Jackson be cut/fired for his anti-Semitic comments? Go to that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, millerandmoulton.com. Good, bad, and ugly next. Thanks for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program. This is the Dan Patrick Show.
College football world was shook over the weekend by reports of positive coronavirus tests throughout the nation. I think we look at college football and say, well, we got time here. We don't.
I don't. At Stanford, I am guessing that all of them were on some sort of scholarship because most kids there get some sort of aid. But they wouldn't have been on full scholarships because those programs don't really provide full scholarships.
Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor
And
in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection.
Trenton there with a great point. If Nashville shut down the way they did, how does that? It was 20 coaches and 240 athletes at Stanford that they'll play sports this year, but will not next year.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products.
All right.
We also carry the Cortex Stone product.
Let's get to work here.
Looks like stone, but it's Cortex, so you get
By the way, Mets 38-12 in their last 50 opening days. 38-12. 1970 to last year. 38-12 on opening day.
6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, fourmeisters.com. That's fourmeisters.com.
Great news, Southwest Florida. Summer clearance event going on now at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Lowest prices ever on over 1,500 new and certified pre-owned vehicles. Loaded, luxurious Grand Cherokee limited lease, $289 per month. That's right, Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, $289 per month. 7-passenger Dodge Journey SUV, just $19,990.
Passaic, New Jersey, Passaik. Is that how you say that?
Passaic.
Passaic. Thank you.
Passaic.
Service and Body Shop are open to serve you. Summer clearance event at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481-2600. GallianaCars.com. 42 monthly, 10,000 miles for your 1999 to assign plus tax, tech title, dealer and acquisition fee, 0 security deposit, $13.88 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 72 months at 0 APR with 0 down with lender approval offer from bond.
Dial star 2020. Friends, I care.
Do you panic when someone says we need to talk? Well, here it goes. We need to talk, but don't panic. This is the good kind of talk. Those glasses and contacts you're sporting, they're just in the way of you having the freedom to enjoy a more flexible lifestyle. France Eye Care wants to offer you $1,000 off bilateral LASIK, the savings that will allow you to celebrate better vision and a better life. Dr. Jonathan France and his expert team of surgeons want to help you see your future in 2020 through the advanced technology of laser vision correction. So what if you've been told you're not a candidate for LASIK? France Eye Care wants you to know there are other options available. But to learn more, you need to call now. Schedule your free screening. Take advantage of that $1,000 off bilateral LASIK special. Financing options available. It's time for you to experience better vision and a better life. Dial star 2020 from your mobile phone.
Friends, I care.
Listen to Miller and Moulton at home on your Amazon Alexa. Just say, Alexa.
Receiving. Over.
Play Fox Sports FM on TuneIn.
We are Fox Sports.
Looking for a frameless shower door? My Shower Door has just opened their 8th Florida showroom, and it's conveniently located in Cape Coral. With more than 75,000 frameless shower doors installed, no one has more experience and 5-star reviews than My Shower Door. We've been named #1 by readers of the News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years and have just been named as Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdor.com.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945.
Oh, good to see the Post has the Florida Costco right story up there.
Do they?
Oh, yeah.
You're never stuck on the water. From the best headlines, the best, to the worst.
You got real loud there. Is that on my end or your end?
Women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
All right. For the good today, this is pretty cool. We go to North Carolina. Linda Denton is 12. She just won a $20,000 grant in Citgo's Fueling Education Student Challenge. She learned that kids die in hot cars because stupid parents leave them behind. So she came up with a solution. Her invention is a car seat that has a pressure pad that registered when something 5 pounds or heavier is put in the car seat. When the temperature gets to 102, it alerts the parents. It can be transferred to other car seats, would cost around $50. That's pretty impressive.
That is.
I mean, for anyone, let alone a 12-year-old. So, I like that one. For the bad, we go to Passaic, New Jersey, where Natalia Bruno, no relation to the air conditioning Bruno, at least I think so. She drives for DoorDash, and she attempted to drive through deep water due to a flash flood. Her car began to fill up with water and float as the tide moved it towards a brook that runs below the city. She went under the city, traveled 30 miles per hour, and finally shot out of an outlet into the Passaic River. She managed to swim to the other side, and then a homeowner called an ambulance, which took her to the hospital. She was not severely injured. She was a DoorDash driver, and DoorDash reached out to a statement saying they will still charge a delivery fee for the family who was supposed to get the food. I made the last part up. Finally, the ugly. We go to Florence, Kentucky, where dad never wants to lose. I mean, when you're a father, admitting that your son's tougher than you is something that just doesn't happen. And Curtis Zimmerman took that to a new level on Monday because he and his son were arm wrestling. And he kept losing. And they became angrier and angrier and got into a physical fight with his son. But that wasn't enough because he then grabbed his gun and fired a couple of shots into the ceiling, which brought police to the home at 1 a.m. Fortunately, no one was injured except for Curtis's ego. That is the good, the bad, and the ugly on today, July the 9th, in this wonderful year that is 2020.
479-5551 is how you can chime in via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551. Our poll question, do you think Deshaun Jackson should be fired/cut by the Eagles for his anti-Semitic comments? Go to that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter, or millerandmoulton.com.
David, I'm doing it. We don't have to even use the sounder, but you know what's on tap coming up here in 8 minutes? New York City FC against Philadelphia Union.
Really?
9 a.m. MLS on ESPN.
Oh, they're getting the four-letter network treatment.
They are.
Good for them. Good for them.
And we've got the golf starting at 3 at Murfield.
Even though it's not Jack's tournament. Jack's tournaments will be at Muirfield next week.
Right.
They're just playing back-to-back events. Originally, this week was going to be no fans, but next week they were going to have fans, but they've opted against that. Hey, when do you think will be the first golf tournament that they have fans?
Augusta.
Remember, Ryder Cup's already been pushed back.
Augusta.
I think it'll be the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I don't.
I think they'll sell about 5,000 tickets or so.
All right. I'll put my money on Augusta with that one. And by the way, for those of you that I don't know if it's on, but Matt Hutchins, kid from Naples, qualified for the Corn Ferry Tour. He tees off 2:40 this afternoon. Great young kid. Good story. Rooting for him today in the AAA of golf tours.
In which you also have to go low.
Hey, I brought this up between there's 3 Monday qualifiers, 1 for the tournament at Murfield and 2 for the Corn Ferry Tour. There were, I believe, 16 64s and 8 63s that didn't get in. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, say it out loud. So you want to be a professional golfer. Hey, we talked about this when George McNeil had it going. All right. And George McNeil at the time, was probably like the 100th best golfer in the world.
Yes.
And think about that. I mean, to be one of the top 100 at what it is you do in the world. And yet how he had to work and the struggles and the minor league tour and, getting and how many times he's won. And this is how hard it is. Speaking of golf, did you see Koepka's little gif that he sent that most people believe was made for DeChambeau?
I did not.
Oh yeah, it implies a little steroid rage.
You think?
Well,
I mean, I've only said that 10 times since this thing started. You don't get that big. Protein shake my ass.
Well,
that's a needle.
Mark, they're supposed to test for it.
Whatever. There's another guy that was accused of steroids too. The testing on the PGA Tour is a joke.
I'm just saying it's something that they're supposed to test for. That's all. They never make any results public, but it's something that is supposed to be tested for. That's all.
Gotcha. I gotcha. I don't buy it. That's all.
All right. So you don't think DeChambeau's on the up and up?
No.
Okay.
No.
I will say, I mean, he had a little pouch, though.
Doesn't mean you can't be fat doing steroids.
Well, I understand that. Okay, but I'm just saying that it's not like, Koepka's completely ripped, if you know what I mean. Okay, DeChambeau was somewhat ripped, but DeChambeau got big. Koepka's ripped.
And DeChambeau looks like he wants to be an offensive lineman.
Right. Now, he did say, hey, I'm going to play a lot here. I'm going to work it off. Just, once I get active again and I'm walking around, I'll work some of this off. But now he's got to contend in majors. I mean, he does not have a good record in the majors yet. That's obviously the next step for him.
Gets that wedge game going. He's going to be tough to beat, period.
Remember, PGA's a month away. First full week of August is the PGA out at Harding Park in San Francisco. And so he doesn't have to keep his game together much longer. And meanwhile, Koepka and Rory and a few others, they got to find their A game here quickly.
Rory's an interesting case study here because he was so good and still is, but it's been a while since Rory's done what we expected him to.
Hasn't won a major since 2014.
I mean, that's a drought. He's on the verge of being overrated right now.
Well, hold on. He is the number one golfer in the world.
Right.
I mean,
and he can't win majors.
Well, he still has 4. I mean, that's pretty good now. But, yeah, to think a 6-year drought of winning majors, I mean, that's a long time, especially when you're 25 to 31.
Thank you. I mean, we crucified Tiger at the back end of his career. And Rory gets a full pass. I'm not trying to say Rory's Tiger. I'm just saying he had all the accolades, and it's been a while. Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening. Fox Sports Radio.
Okay, you guys have a good day. See you tomorrow.
See you, Jero.
It's just like the Western Bacon Cheeseburger with charbroiled beef, crispy bacon and onion rings, and topped with tangy barbecue sauce. But we added